Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about What If Deku Was Stark's Conscience Part 3. If you guys enjoy this What If and want to see Part 4, comment down below and let me know before I start. Please do support for more awesome content and leave a like, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel and also share this video with your friends and check out the description in my playlist. The author of the story 𝗵𝗲 from Wattpad. So let's start the video. Thor had woken up in the hospital after being knocked out by Jane hitting him with her car. He had tried calling from Mjolnir, but nothing happened. He had started calling for it in the desert, but nothing. Jane had helped him run from the government. Apparently they had to stay away from Mexico, as they called this area of Midgard. They sat around a campfire talking. So your planet is full of sorcerers and non-magical are killed. Thor asked, "No, not in America." Jane said, her having an ability that negated electricity. Not collect or use it, but just immunity to getting zapped. In Mexico you'd get checked and lead into an unmarked van. 𝗬𝗏 said, "The quirkless one of the group." Thor remembered when the only magic on Midgard were wizards, and those were far and few between. Our first chance to study an Einstein-Rosen bridge, and the government takes my research. Jane said, "A what?" Thor asked. "A wormhole." 𝗬𝗏 said, "Why are you studying the holes of Earth parasites?" Thor asked. "No, an Einstein-Rosen bridge is a theoretical structure linking 2 points in space together." Jane said, "Oh, a Bifrost bridge." Thor exclaimed, "You know about it?" Jane asked. "Yes, it's how I got here. My hammer can open the Bifrost." Thor said, "I can go to all 9 realms with it." "Wait, doesn't it require like a giant machine or something?" 𝗬𝗏 asked. "Well, the Bifrost is the old model. And wizards can achieve the same thing without it, but..." Thor looked down. "I'm not as studied as my father or my brother." "Wait." 𝗬𝗏 jumped up. "You can learn magic. Like you can just get a book and learn to shoot lightning from your fingertips." "Yes, such information is available in Asgard." Thor said, "Okay, if we help you get the hammer back, can you please take us?" Jane asked. "Lady Jane, if we find my hammer, I would gladly bring you to my home." Thor said, "But it isn't responding to me, and I am banished until I am worthy to lift it." "Hey, can you answer a few questions?" 𝗬𝗏 asked, "Like about mythology." "Go ahead." Thor said, "Did you really cross-dress to attack a giant's wedding?" 𝗬𝗏 asked. "Yeah, is this the same hammer?" Jane asked. "No, actually that one was my childhood toy." Thor said, rubbing his neck. "Mother originally said no and ordered father to just leave it be, but Loki convinced me to go through with it." "Wait, what did the hammer do if it wasn't Mjolnir?" Jane asked. "If adds sentimental value." Thor had looked sheepish. "Wait, so the reason you needed a belt and gloves to lift it was dash. Yes, back then I was actually quite frail." Thor said, remembering his childhood. "So what about your goats?" 𝗬𝗏 asked. "𝗵𝗲 and 𝗕𝗏𝗯." Thor exclaimed, "They were the best pets a boy could have. There was a story about you feeding them to some guy, and then when they broke the bones dash." 𝗬𝗏 started. Thor covered his face. "Okay, that one needs some contexts. Number 1, it wasn't exactly about the bones or the goats, it was I beat him in a card game and he owed me 5 Asgard coin. Someone misheard that and thought it was just the bones. Second, it's so stupid cause the bones are the best part of 𝗵𝗲 and 𝗕𝗏𝗯, of course I'd offer it for the lodging." "Wait, so you didn't enslave him?" Jane asked. "No. I did have him as a servant for a year, but that was just to pay the debt." Thor said. "So wait, how much is an Asgard coin?" 𝗬𝗏 asked. "Well, Asgard has 20 different money types, but an Asgard coin is the universal currency of my realm. It's the highest value of and is backed by 𝐒𝐻𝑢 metal. Each coin is worth about 1 bar of 𝐻𝑢, which if you were going to sell to Earth wizards would cost," Thor paused to think about it for a second, "about $5 trillion a coin." 𝗬𝗏 was choking on the water she was drinking. "A year as a servant for $25 trillion. Jane asked. "Well, the value has gone up since then, however it was still a lot at the time." Thor said. "How is it that much?" 𝗬𝗏 asked. "I'm a prince." Thor said. "What can I get for sucking your pages?" 𝗬𝗏 asked. "A tempting offer, but mother would probably kick me to Helheim and back." Thor said. "Seriously, what's the going rate on Asgard?" 𝗬𝗏 asked. "𝗬𝗏, Jane said. Back in Japan, Izuku grabbed Shoko's face and pushed her towards the edge. Shoko rolled back and kicked him in the gut, getting him to let go of her. She could smell the burned flesh on her face, and the blisters forming on her wrist had her realize something before next beating happened. Midoriya wasn't gonna go easy on her. Shoko! 𝗵𝗲 shouted from the stadium crowd. Shoko had gotten kicked in the ribs and sent flying like a kickball. Then Midoriya approached and repeated. Shoko had grabbed his leg, but the force had snapped her wrist. With her limp hand she coated him in ice mid-step, but he stomped onto her right hand, breaking out of the ice. "Do you get it yet?" Izuku asked, grabbing her throat, burning it. "You aren't my daughter, you aren't my girl, you're another one in the same field as me, and you're treating this as a joke." Izuku threw her back to center field. "I fixed that pretty face. I tried the talking method. But apparently we need to do this the painful way," Izuku said. "And Izuku isn't pulling any punches, folks. Todoroki looks like she's gonna lose this." "Shoko, use my quirk," 𝗵𝗲 shouted. "It's not his quirk." Izuku backhanded her. "You're not just 𝗵𝗲's daughter. You're Snow Maiden's too. She married that prick for the sole purpose of making you. You treat the thing I envy the world for having like a curse. It's your quirk, Todoroki. I won't let you keep wasting it." Todoroki had gotten struck again and started remembering her childhood. The good times with her mother and the days she first got her quirk. The smile on her mother's face. The day her quirk first activated. Shoko left side ignited and the crowd went wild. Izuku was pushed back by the flames. Shoko had felt a wave of relief wash over her as a wall of fire had separated the two. That relief was short-lived. And Midoriya is burned to a crisp, but holy 𝗧𝗪, folks, he's still standing. And Midoriya is burned to a crisp, but holy 𝗧𝗪, folks, he's still standing. Shoko had seen his body put itself back together around the blacked bones. Shoko had seen his body put itself back together around the blacked bones. By the time he had gotten back in range, the only thing she had achieved was burning off everything but his underwear. "You aren't getting off that easy," Izuku said. Shoko started to shake. "You want to prove you're Snow Maiden's daughter? Actually use what she gave you," Izuku said, swinging again. Ice walls kept forming and Izuku was just headbutting through them. The look in his eyes, that wasn't her friend. This wasn't Izuku. This was the thing that fought All Might. This was the thing that fought Bakugo. This was the thing that stopped the Nomu. Shoko felt a rush run down her back. Running to the center area, Izuku followed. Running to the center area, Izuku followed. Like a Terminator, cold and focused, but the sweat on his skin was evaporating. Shoko froze his legs and just unloaded as much fire as she could on him. Izuku mouth opened and a plum of flames met hers at the midpoint. Izuku mouth opened and a plum of flames met hers at the midpoint. Izuku twisted his leg and the ice was cracked. Midoriya residence Hisashi clapped his hands together. "My boy." Inko had been gripping both her best friend and husband when the flames first engulfed Izuku. She still didn't know the full extent of extremis. "So how many grandchildren you think you're having?" Mitsuki asked. "Yes," Hisashi shouted. 𝗵𝗲, finally. Shoko was finally using my quirk. When the metal hand had pressed against her face, 𝗵𝗲 was about ready to jump over the edge. And holy 𝗧𝗪, that healing factor. I need to talk to him about those glasses and underwear. Beach, we're here to show the world the next generation of heroes. The boy had gotten closer to Shoko. "All I'm seeing a cheap knockoff." Shoko had held out both her hands and both sides of her quirk fired off at once. "Yes." Izuku had rushed forward and yanked her arms above her head. "Not enough, Beach," the green-haired boy said before headbutting his perfect creation. "Stop this." 𝗵𝗲 shouted at midnight. "The girl needs to learn." 𝗵𝗲 could see the screen zooming in on his daughter's panicked face. Her eyes were closed in defeat, but the boy shook her like a rag doll. "Come on. You really don't get it. Class 1, this is scary, ribbit." Tsuyu said. "Midoriya looks hateful. The darkest creatures of the abyss are quaking at the fire before us." Tokoyami said. "Welp, it was good to know Todoroki." Dark Shadow said. "Who's the pallbearer at the funeral?" "Izuku wouldn't kill her." Mina said. "Right. Not entirely sure herself. I know he's pissed Butte isn't this much. Denki asked. Actually Deku's going easy on her. Katsumi said. He's beating her like she owes him money. 𝗓𝗪 said, what makes you call this going easy? 'Cause she's still standing. Katsumi said, getting weird looks. With a sigh she continued, Deku's a runt. He's always been skin and bones and he had this annoying stutter. You think a guy with the ball to actually get in UA without a quirk is gonna look at a half and half pretending half of her quirk doesn't exist with pity. Compassion. Look at that body. Toru said, trying to lighten the mood. Like a Greek god. DMN right. Katsumi muttered. DMN those underwear. Tochako said before muttering, you will burn in hell for this transgression. Katsumi had shifted her eyes to look at round face, then back to Deku and nodding in agreement with her. It's like a wall of hunk. Toru said, way to make a guy feel inadequate. Ojiro said, looking at his own arm. Tokoyami looked down at himself and slumped. He was feathers and bones. At least you got some muscle, you tailed 𝗵𝘃𝗧𝗏. It's too much manliness for lesser beings. Kirishima said, hold me daddy. Ribbit. So you said, come on. Mineta said, every girl wants him and he makes guys look like me. I've been close to them but his undersheath was on for most of it but Momo was taken out of her depression from losing for the moment. A wet match to a shining star. Aoyama said, bowing his head as sad French music seemed to play and his body turned black and white. Make me a true alien queen, you appealing space marine. Mina said, we should ask Midoriya to train you. Dark Shadow said to Tokoyami. Who? He's quirkless, remember. Dark Shadow said, it would take years to get like that. Tokoyami said, actually Deku only got that big senior year. Katsumi said, who? Ojiro said. Katsumi pulled out her phone, which many were doing snapping photos. She pulled up her school photos and showed them. Junior year, junior year. Katsumi said. Senior. Gesturing to the field. Seek the wisdom of the Great One. Dark Shadow said. Yes. Tokoyami, Ojiro, Kirishima and Mineta said in unison. Holly-Eater said, look at Katsumi's butt. Mina looked, oh? Thur grabbed the phone and looked between it and the girl sitting next to her. 𝗓𝗪 grabbed the phone and looked between it and the girl sitting next to her. Okay, what devil do I need to sell my soul to? 𝗓𝗪 said to Katsumi. I don't need a shitty demon to get in but like this. Katsumi shouted. At times she felt it was a curse. She missed pants fitting. Pair of thick queens. Mina said, standing and shaking her hips. Pair of thick queens. Mina said, standing and shaking her hips. Come on, thick sister. Mina said to Katsumi, shake it, queen. No. Katsumi said. Jesus Raccoon Eyes was both the most annoying and most tolerable of these beaches. 𝗓𝗪 got up to use the bathroom. Unfortunately, she didn't have time to change out of the cheerleader outfit and it was reminding her of a fact she really hated. Class 1B, Jesus wrapped those pythons around me. 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏 said. Don't use the Lord's name in vain. 𝐈𝐵 said. Take a look at that body and tell me it's sacrilegious to compare the two. Kinoko said, licking her lips, you gotta introduce me to that fun guy. I'm looking to ride cowboy. Pony said in English. Let me touch those shoulders. I don't need my quirk to make that bigger. Kodai said, I wondered what his routine is like. Writing notes. Come on, so he's a little ripped. Monoma started, doesn't mean he's tough. The headbutt through the ice wall happened. The headbutt through the ice wall happened. Monoma said, I am not worthy of this manliness. Tetsu said, Shinso, you got to feel those hands on your waist. 𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏 said, mind giving us a description. Hidosha looked at them and then to Kendo, mind putting these thirsty skanks on leashes before they jump his well-toned butt. Noko, stop, cough, cough, control yourselves. Cough, cough, cough. Kendo said, disinterested as her phone was also snapping pictures. Outside, empty lady had whistled from looking over the side of the stadium. Jesus, that effer looks made of granite. Wood said, looking at his arms. He sure grew up. Empty lady said, you know him. Wood shouted. Random Club A cat-like female with blonde hair had just killed a guy in a bathroom, drank his BLD and exited to see the TV. How when did we start showing pawn? The blonde said. Wardrobe malfunction in the UA tournament. The bartender said bored. Also you either need to start paying or you can't come here anymore. You're killing my best clients. Oh come on, this is the only club that won't card me. The blonde whined. Don't care. And your stank but boyfriend needs to quit slacking off. The bartender said. Not my girlfriend/boyfriend. The blonde said at the same time as a voice shouted from the back room. Some apparent in slums. Well, this day's full of surprises. A katana wielding figure said, watching from his phone. Villain's headquarters Shigaraki had been watching to scout out the next target, and when the green guy showed his quirk, the decay quirk wielder turned to their caretaker. He's probably gonna call. The bartender said. Phone rings. Shoko, what does he want from us? We're using both quirks. A white-haired Shoko shouted. Think of something before we're both slapped out our skull. The red-haired. You're the logical side. White hair shouted. Think of a plan. You're the creative side. Red side said, get creative. Another headbutt and their viewing screen cracked. Their whole base quaked and sent the two to the ground. Okay, that's a concussion. White side said. Red. Yeah, white. If we don't make it out of this, I'm sorry. I'm sorry too, sis. Just then the glass wall that separated the two for 10 years opened a small hole. When the hands connected, an ember formed in their combined hands. Field Shoko blinked. Her heart racing in fear. Adrenaline running through her. Suddenly she had a weird feeling in her everything. She felt both her quirks, but instead of a breath informing them, it was an external one. She felt both her quirks. But instead of a breath informing them, it was an external one. With the last of her strength, the hot and cold seemed to enter her lungs, along with the smoky scent of tisane and burned flesh currently holding her. The one that seemed to be trying break something like a shell around her. I'm not just some PP in a suit. Her BLD started feeling cold before it felt as if it was made of napalm. We came here to show what we have. The pain from the branding irons called hands wrapped around her wrists seemed to dull. She took in a full breath and her mind seemed to suddenly full with euphoria. Blinded and drunk off a new feeling, she didn't see what her body did next. But she sure could feel it. There are stories about every hero. A warm feeling covered her body. Like a sweater in winter or a pool during the summer. That perfect middle ground. How they became great. She knew fire started around her, but it wasn't biting like normally. One thing that they all have in common, it felt good. Shoko took another breath and the flames grew. Their bodies moved before they could even think. Suddenly there was no hot or cold. No half and half. It's your quirk, not his. For a few seconds she felt truly complete. For a few seconds she felt truly complete. Like her soul itself had finally started to breath. And that air started a new flame. And that air started a new flame. You can take away my toys. Shoko shakingly pushed herself up. My name is Izuku Midoriya. I am founder of Stark Industries. A student of UA College of Heroes. Shoko took another ragged breath. I've been kicked my entire life and I can respond in kind. Shoko's bangs covered her eyes. But there's one thing you can't take from me. Shoko looked into the green eyes of her first friend. I am Iron Man. Izuku. Shoko twisted her hands and grabbed Izuku's arms. The pink flames engulfed him, but no heat was felt. Only a biting frost. The flesh on his arms turned black, and when his muscles couldn't function, Shoko broke her arms free and slammed her fists into his arms, shattering down to bone. Shoko waved her arms and a wave of pink fire pushed him back. The cold slowing his body's healing, forming icicles around him. Shoko was pushing him as much as she could to the end. Izuku moved his hand to a shard and used his spit to freeze his hand to it and snapped it off. Izuku moved his hand to a shard and used his spit to freeze his hand to it and snapped it off. Shoko was impaled by her ice shard but kept pushing forward. And Midoriya is out. Todoroki moves on to the final round against Bakugo. Both collapsed, the fire dying out as Shoko's body had lost thermostasis. Medical wing Izuku had to be cut open to plug his reactor back in, having took it out for the tournament. The outer ring was removed, but the hole is still underneath a layer of skin. Just to describe how it looked when he got up, he saw May and Recovery Girl standing there. Shoko was laying on a cot with ice packs covering her left side and heating pads on her right. The stab wound healed my Recovery Girl. Another time you end up in my medical wing. Recovery Girl said. Technically this isn't the same one. Izuku said. That's not the point. Stop fighting things bigger than you. Recovery Girl said. But Midoriya is taller than me. Shoko said from the bed. Don't encourage him. Recovery Girl said. Well, at least you aren't fighting. I completely forgot her name. May said. I won't be fighting anything worse anytime. Izuku felt something in his hand. Izuku looked down and started to shake. Izuku looked down and started to shake. Izuku. What's that? May asked. The green-haired boy turned white as a ghost. Izuku looked between it and the people in the room. He looked towards the open window and rushed out it. Hey, get back here! Recovery Girl shouted. Izuku spun the hammer and headed into the sky. Izuku spun the hammer and headed into the sky. Jarvis, I need a suit. Priority 0. Izuku shouted as he was being pulled out above the city. On its way, sir. Jarvis said as the armor pieces burst through his dorm window to catch up with him as he was headed out the country. Headed for the birthplace of the atomic bomb. Notes. Okay, listen. Last chapter 1 tried with too much and it flopped. This is the fixed chapter where Thor is here. Little thing I wanted to say what I was trying to do. Izuku having a panic attack, a hit at another interdimensional problem, Supergirl being there, a confirmation that Izuku was worthy. So here's a revised version of the welcome to Midgard. Tell me if you want me to put it back or not. Over the Pacific Ocean, Izuku was running on autopilot. The hammer pulling him through the air towards the place of Stark Industries' greatest tragedy. New Mexico. Birthplace of the atomic bomb. Howard didn't split the atom like Robert Oppenheimer, he slammed them together. Robert had a somber feeling towards the whole thing, while Howard, much like Tony in his younger years, reviled in the destruction. 255,000 dead. Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds. Robert Oppenheimer, rookie numbers. Howard Stark. Izuku had always saw nuclear power as something glorious in all forms. Horror or hope. Heroes or monsters. It was just energy to him. Energy. He knew what would happen if dipshits got their hands on it. Mjolnir was everything Izuku thought it was. The power, the advanced technology, yet the simplicity in the device. Tony refused to accept magic, but Izuku understood. If he wasn't currently back in New York fighting the God of Thunder, he'd be fanboying over the fact he was finally holding it. If he wasn't currently being lifted by the throat, being choked out by the guy who started the invasion of Earth, he'd be studying it. He didn't know what was out in the stars in his own galaxy, but to be holding 𝗧𝗏, be holding a piece of the greatest weapon in existence, Izuku was going on instinct. The instinct that rushed to save people. The hero's instinct that had finally cracked the wall to finally help Tony. In the middle of the 𝗔𝗂𝗁 desert was a blonde man wearing civilian clothes, and the thing that started everything. In the middle of the 𝗔𝗂𝗁 desert was a blonde man wearing civilian clothes, and the thing that started everything. Izuku had seen the light. That blue light from that god 𝗕𝗏 scepter. And all he could do was roar as a bolt of lightning had struck the hammer and was headed for the frost giant's head. Loki. You know, the last time Loki set foot on Midgard, they hadn't even discovered electricity. To be honest, the Midgards had impressed him with their current advancement in the tech tree. Loki. A voice boomed. It wasn't Thor. It wasn't Odin. It wasn't Dwight. No one else ever really had spoke to him like that. Not one that lived anyway. The half-naked Midgardian holding Mjolnir with green hair and a pair of eyes similar to his own had came slamming down with a burst of lightning, and before I could make a single comment, that demon hammer was slammed into his chest and his staff was in the hands of the Midgardian. The hammer was recalled and slammed down onto his scepter, shattering the drop of Yggdrasil dew that made up his focus for his more trickster abilities. You owe me a new one. Loki said. You aren't getting out of here alive, ice giant. Please, what do you plan to do against me, Midgardian? Loki asked. Honestly, he never was actually gone against anyone willing to hurt him with his brother's hammer. I'm gonna turn you into a snow cone. The green-haired Midgardian shouted. Loki Odinson had strength. Not as much as his brother, but strength. But when he had grabbed the Midgardian's neck when he came in for a hit, a hand had grabbed his fingers and snapped them backwards. "'Tis but a stubbed toe." Loki hid the fact it hurt like 𝗧𝗂𝗧𝗔𝗂𝘁𝗵𝗲 well. After being kicked over, a charged hammer slammed to his codpiece had gotten the reaction the Midgardian wanted. The 𝗕 gold of 𝗕𝗏𝗧, invulnerable to nearly every weapon in the universe, just got hit by the greatest weapon in the universe. The 𝗏𝗪 family jewels were struck for what Loki could remember the first time of his life. And the ice giant realized this was a serious fight. "Okay," Loki wheezed out, stumbling to get up. His skin turned blue as he had drawn from his frost giant's BLD. His skin turned blue as he had drawn from his frost giant's BLD. "Let's take this seriously," Loki said, taking a breath, and the breath of the frost giants, the one that started the Ice Age, had been released. And the figure just heated up and kept up the attack. "𝗧𝗑𝗁," Loki cursed. He honestly didn't know what to do right now. His original goal of find his diamond hammer had kinda never went beyond that. Thor had seen a windstorm kick up surrounding the area to prevent interference. "Who the F is that?" Darcy shouted. "I don't know." Thor said, "I need to stop this." "Are you sure that's even possible?" Jane asked. "He's got your hammer and is strong enough to break your brother's fingers. I think we should wait for the heroes to send help." "But Loki," Thor started. "Has he ever done anything for anyone?" Jane asked. "He's my brother. And Jane's the closest thing to a sister I have, but if a buff dude is coming at her with a hammer that can make F lightning, I'm running," Darcy said. "Look, there are people trained to deal with this," Jane said. Thor had fought with himself over rushing in and waiting. Meanwhile, back in Japan, All Might was giving out the medals. Due to Midoriya's disappearance and Todoroki's injuries, 𝗵𝗃𝗲 was called the victor. "No, I want an actual fight," 𝗵𝗃𝗲 shouted. "Haven't changed from the cheer uniform yet. And where the hell is Deku?" All Might had put the medal in her teeth, and after everyone left, All Might got a notification on something happening in America. Giant windstorm surrounding 2 people in the 𝗕𝗁𝐴𝐻UAN desert. One black-haired male with an ice quirk being attacked by, quote, green-haired dude with a hammer. All Might had slipped off and shrunk. "Jarvis, where is Midoriya?" "Currently in New Mexico," Jarvis said. "I was afraid of that," All Might said, pulling up his contacts. "How fast can Liberty get here?" "En route now, sir." "Call BoomTube." "Calling, Toshi." "Have you heard what's going on in New Mexico?" "I think it's one of my students," All Might said. "The dudes kicked up a Category 5 hurricane. None of the flyers can get through and they're trying to get a teleporter in. Dude hits like a truck. Listen, if you can get me in there, I can talk him down," All Might said. "Alright, where are you?" BoomTube asked. "I'm just outside the sports festival stadium in Japan," All Might said as the Iron Liberty suit landed in the alley. "Alright, give me a second to punch it in my phone." The other person was punching it in. "Alright, on my way." "Jarvis, I need to know what's going on in there," All Might said as he entered the suit. "Showing Sir's heads-up display," Jarvis said as All Might was watching a blue-skinned man fighting against Izuku. "Midoriya, what is going on?" All Might thought as a portal opened and the wormhole hero, BoomTube, appeared. A friend from his time in the American Hero branch. "Let's go, ma. Diamond finally upgraded?" BoomTube asked. "Yeah, let's go." New Mexico. All Might had arrived just in time to see the piece of Midoriya's armor get there and assemble around him along with a shield. All Might had arrived just in time to see the piece of Midoriya's armor get there and assemble around him along with a shield. "Okay, that's not fair," Loki shouted as he had scrambled to dodge another attack. "Was it fair to invade Earth? Was it fair to hurt my planet? Was it fair you helped Thanos kill half the F universe?" Midoriya shouted. "Who's Thanos?" Loki asked. The lightning flowed through his armor. The lightning flowed through his armor, dwarfing his arc reactor's power and supercharging his repulsors. "Tell you what, if you stop now, I'll pay you and leave," Loki said, holding out a fake Asgard he often used to prank people of the realms. "Tell you what, if you stop now, I'll pay you and leave," Loki said, holding out a fake Asgard he often used to prank people of the realms. The lights on the eyes turned red and the hammer was raised again. The lights on the eyes turned red and the hammer was raised again. "You die today, Frost Giant," You die today, Frost Giant. Izuku said. Class 1A dorms. It was 2 days after the tournament when Shinso had knocked on the other hero class's dorms. Can I help you? Another purple-haired girl answered the door. Yeah, the green one told me he wanted to train me. Shinso said. He said something about having plans to help me. He hasn't left his room since he came back yesterday. She said, come on in. So where'd he go exactly? Shinso asked. No clue. All we know is him and All Might returned miserable for some reason. Jiryu said. Shinso looked around and saw a few people just kicking it. It was a day off, so it was expected. Out walked from the dorms a unshaved, greasy mop of green hair in shorts and a muscle shirt. Shinso, glad you actually came. Are you okay? Shinso looked at him up and down. 'Cause you definitely look like you haven't slept since the tournament. Not important. Izuku said, let's get you into shape. Anyone else want to join? I also require more physical training. Tokoyami said. I'm in. Kirishima shouted. All right, Momo. I'm good for today. Momo said, sitting on a block of ice. What's up with her? Shinso asked. Don't ask. Momo said. Let's see what you got for workout gear. Izuku said. A muttering of words I couldn't understand as an unmarked notebook was pulled out of somewhere. When my UA gym uniform was revealed, Izuku grabbed it. No. This is physical training. No quirks, no tests, this is pure working out, so you're gonna need the right equipment. Momo, she's gonna need some proper workout clothes. What size are you? Momo asked. Shinso had a bad feeling about what the rest of her day was gonna be. Later the group consisted of Izuku, Tokoyami, Shinso, Kirishima and Ojiro. I feel naked. Shinso said as she was in a pair of short shorts and a sports bra, there's no point of wearing extra clothes if you're gonna be sweating today. Izuku said, grinning. Why am I wearing these? Tokoyami asked, wearing only shorts and shoes. Dark Shadow let out a wolf whistle. 'Cause you're the newbie. Kirishima said, slapping him on the back. You gotta get this part over with. Ojiro said, dressed in his standard GI. Why are you wearing that? Shinso asked. One must train in gear. Ojiro said. Normally I'd be training in a depowered suit. Izuku said, but today I'm here to get you caught up. A firm slap to her left butt cheek sent Shinso jumping a foot into the air and letting out a loud yelp. First we'll be doing some light cardio. Shinso sighed and followed the group. Izuku pulling behind to make sure she didn't. Hours later they had made it to wherever it was that Midoriya was taking them. Welcome to 𝗂𝐵𝗄 Municipal Beach Park. Welcome to 𝗂𝐵𝗄 Municipal Beach Park. Izuku shouted. Shinso and Tokoyami were gulping down water as the image of the sun illuminated Izuku that made them briefly think of All Might. Wait, wasn't this covered in trash a few months ago? Ojiro asked. Yep. Izuku said. And were you trained? Tokoyami asked. Yep. Izuku said, grinning. Wait, you cleaned this SHT hole? Shinso shouted. Yep. Got it done in 3 months. Izuku said, on this sand was where the man you are looking at truly started. Somenly. Kirishima said, getting pumped, but Tokoyami and Shinso had realized what they were getting into when the pictures of what it was were pulled up. Kirishima said, getting pumped, but Tokoyami and Shinso had realized what they were getting into when the pictures of what it was were pulled up. Oh shy. Shinso and Tokoyami said in unison as they realized what they signed up for. Heroes are civil servants. We not only help the community by fighting villains, we help in other ways. Izuku said, there's a park that looks very similar to what this place did. It's only 1/10 the size, so it should only take 1/10 the time. Just enough to get you 3 on the right track. Wait, Dark Shadow started. Tokoyami's been carrying you for the last 14 years, Dark Shadow. You're gonna be carrying him for the next few blocks. Izuku said. Dark Shadow lips started quivering. Tokoyami had tried that before, but it was the most excruciating thing they've ever tried. Sure, Dark Shadow could lift him, but it was very draining to the shadow. I'll carry Shinso there and we can start building some actual muscle. Izuku said, scooping up the tired purple-haired student. The 3 newbies had all finally realized what they were in for when the shadows of the piled trash at what was once a park came into view. Wait, I changed my mind. Shinso shouted, trying to wiggle her way off Izuku's shoulder. A hand on her but had held firm as she was set down. A fridge was tied up and a rope was thrown to 𝗃𝗁𝗵𝗲. 50 meters. Izuku said, plopping onto the fridge. Midoriya, that's easily over 300 pounds. 𝗃𝗁𝗵𝗲 said, I don't have a strength quirk. Neither do I, Izuku said. Soon. Ojiro said, grabbing the rope and pulling it with ease. Kirishima said, dragging it back to its original place. I pulled all might on one of these on sand. Izuku said, I don't have any quirk, so doesn't all might weigh like 600 pounds? 𝗃𝗁𝗵𝗲 asked. That's why I'm going easy on you too. Izuku said, pulling out his phone and snapping photos. We have 2 weeks till U3's internships with 𝐒𝐭𝐴 and 𝐒𝐻𝑒𝐢𝑧. Izuku said, we have class in 1 week, so we gotta make the most of our free time to get you into shape. What makes you say Aizawa is gonna be my mentor? Shinso asked. It's either him, Midnight, who is gonna pick Momo, or Mrs. Joke. Which one is gonna be more appealing to you? Izuku asked. Time's up, the one that requires the less travel. What about Hawks? What says I'm interning under him? 𝗃𝗁𝗵𝗲 said. Come on, man. He's gonna pick you. Izuku said. Dare I ask how you know that? Dark Shadow asked. Madman's knowledge. Izuku said, grinning. The Goths all looked at one another. Has Midoriya always been so creepy? Class 1B Kendo has opened the door to see the limp body of Hitosha Shinso being carried. What happened? Kendo screamed. Training. Izuku said, mind if I come in and set her down? Kendo let him, and after setting her on the couch, he pulled out a packet. As the president of Class 1B, I can entrust you hold her to this. The aim to pass American Dream Plan. Kendo read the label. This is a specific tailored workout regimen to get the most out of her before the internships. Izuku said, food, workout, sleep schedule. Midnight's number is there if she needs help sleeping. Kendo looked through the packet and was looking paler and paler. Are you trying to kill her? No, I'm trying to get her into the right mindset to succeed. Izuku said, I'm going easy on the girl with this. Kendo had looked between the green-haired boy and her classmate. What do you need me to do? Follow the packet exactly. No slacking or pushing. Izuku said. Gym Zeta in the padded exercise room with her laptop. Shoko was watching a tutorial video for cheerleading in the padded exercise room with her laptop. Well, this is surprising. Shoko had fallen on her, but when she heard the voice of Midnight. In walked Midnight and Momo. Hey Shoko. Liking the outfit? Yeah. Shoko said, looking down at the UA-themed cheer skirt. I always wanted to do it, but my school didn't have any teams and Endeavor probably wouldn't want me to waste time on it. Some of the most fun times was me and the girls during cheer. Midnight said, guess I have a project till the internships. Hey, what were you two doing here? Shoko asked. Never mind that, dear summer child. But I was born in January. Shoko's hair was ruffled, then put up by Midnight. Your hair's long, sweetie. Good rule is around melon's length at max, okay. Line break. The three had spent the day just going through what Midnight had replicated the first day of cheer. Shoko had felt something inside her as the older woman had reminded her of an old feeling. Shoko had seemed to zone out as her body had started reacting to orders. This was way more than she'd been doing since she had started her rebelling from Endeavor. Honestly, this felt good. The workout was actually fun. It was a comforting feeling of a long-missed feeling in her chest before a scream from Momo had snapped her out of it. What? Shoko, your quirk. It happened again, Shoko said, looking down at her hands. Just like the tournament. You're learning to use both of your quirks. Momo said. A crack of a ridding CRP across Midnight's thigh had caused Momo to jump. Tisk tisk. Midnight waved her finger. 2 weeks with the green-haired playboy and you still don't see it. Do you need another whipping? No, Mrs. Momo said. Shoko looked between the two. Are you Midnight's secret love child? No, dear, but I am training her. Midnight said. But here's a little wisdom your beefcake of a class president already taught you. You don't have two quirks. But Shoko was looking at her hands, raising one then the other in a silent, but look. A hand was placed on her shoulder. Sweetie, your quirk is temperature control. Your only problem is your mind is seeing it as two things. Shoko was looking at her still confused. The fact Midoriya had gotten you to use both sides at once is proof. Midnight said. It's like writing Todoroki. Momo said, you have a DMT hand but you can train yourself to use both. Exactly. You gotta get your sub-hand to the proper skill to be the SWSH you need to be. Midnight said. She really said that? Momo thought, covering her face. What's a SWSH? Shoko asked. Do you know how SEC works? Midnight asked. Yeah, I know how babies are made. Shoko said. But you've never learned to more carnal parts of section. Midnight said. Shoko shook her head. Right endeavor. Momo said. Immediately Todoroki's left side went off. Midnight had pulled Todoroki to a bench. Sweetie, quirks are like muscles. Look at me. I actually can knock myself out with my quirk if I put too much into it. I could literally starve myself if I went too much with my quirk. Momo said, munching on an unmarked bar of something. But Shoko started until she remembered the pink fire. She watched that recording of that goddess in action. That was the only term she could compare the thing fighting Midoriya. That was the only term she could compare the thing fighting Midoriya. I can't unlock that fire. Why could I do it before but not now? Shoko asked. Shoko was pulled to Midnight. Tell me what you were feeling during the fight. Afraid, really afraid after I had realized I was about to get a beating. Shoko said, is that the secret? Null dash, Midnight started but shook her head. Sweetie, your problem is entirely mental. Shoko's face looking at the purple-haired succubus. Look at yourself. Half red, half white. You talk about your left and right as if they are different. Midnight said, what were you thinking when you just activated your quirk? I felt happy. Shoko said, how does it usually work? Midnight asked. I just breath. Shoko shrugged. Midnight had smiled, and that's the trick. Quirks are affected by emotions and our mental state. Shoko raised a hand to her face. Midoriya said he fixed your face. Momo said, he must have thought about this. He said I had to talk to my mother. Shoko said, I'm scared too. More scared of Midoriya. Midnight said. He was willing to burn you and himself to get through to his friend. Momo said. Shoko could count her friends before Midoriya on one hand. More the hand folding into a finger and pointed at Momo, and that was a big maybe. Tool, go talk to my mother. Shoko said. There you go. Now how about a smile? Midnight said. Midnight said, there it is. Midnight patted her on the cheek. Line break, the memory of a time before things went to _𝐻 had played as Shoko took the train to the hospital. Tears mixed with the boiling water had sent a phantom pain to her eye. She had closed her eyes in front of the hospital door and shook as she had started remembering. I'm sorry. Hey, quit blocking the DMN door. A figure bumped into her. Sorry. Todoroki said, sidestepping the scared figure. Do I know you? You look familiar. No, F off. The figure pulled a hood up and walked off. Get back here and show. Your eye, what are you wearing? Fuyumi, Todoroki asked. Midoriya had a point to prove. Shoko said. Ma'am, are you in need of medical attention? A nurse walked over. No, I'm here to visit someone. Shoko said. Well, unfortunately visiting hours are over for today. Nurse said. Oh, Shoko said, the courage having completely left as she was turning to leave. Come on, 5 minutes. Fuyumi said. Sorry, I can't dash. Fuyumi reached into her pocket. 10 friends of mine says we have 5 minutes. Fuyumi said, waving the bills in her face. The nurse looked in the mostly empty room. Who? Whispered her. Rei Todoroki. Shoko said. Follow me. Outside the door of room, Shoko was feeling as if her bones were made of lead. The dread heavier than anything she'd ever felt. Shoko reached for the door but her hand froze on the handle. Shoko was about to run till she heard the TV. With Izuku's voice. You wanna prove you're Snow Maiden's daughter. Actually use what she gave you. Shoko turned to see her sister nodding. Shoko opened the door to see a woman with pure white hair watching the screen. A somber look on her face. When she heard the door open she turned. Snow Flame. Todoroki said. Hi Mom. Shoko said, my baby all grown up. Ray said, shaking as she had touched Shoko's face. I saw your fight, I'm sorry your face was burned twice. Her hand went to the burns on Shoko's arms. The handprints unable to be healed properly by Recovery Girl due to the brand nature of the burn. That boy fixed your face. Ray said. He fixed a lot of stuff. Shoko said. Tears filled both their eyes and they broke down crying in each other's arm. Fuyumi had entered to tell them the time was up, but she had broke down too and joined in the hug. Times dash, the nurse started until a card was thrown at her. Excuse me, I have a patient to help with. She walked off. Shoko had felt a warmth in her chest as the fragments of a long-thought piece of her was starting to become whole. Meanwhile, Izuku had just got back into his room and said, Jarvis, anything from BoomTube or All Might? No, sir. Call both. Shall I leave a message? Izuku was trying to get his breathing under control. Izuku leaned against the door. Sir. Lunch. It had been 1 week of training with the green-haired SLV driver. Shinso's entire body was feeling it. The others of Class 1B had listened to Kendo's orders to make sure 𝗕𝗁𝙢𝗎 followed the packet. She missed chocolate so much. The green in question was sitting with his friends seeming to be normal, but one said something and suddenly he wasn't smiling. You okay bro? Kirishima started. He started muttering, but before anyone could say something, All Might came in and walked over to Izuku. Midoriya, please come with me to the principal's office. All Might said that Smile was there, but something in his voice had put the cafeteria on edge. The boy walked off. What's with him? Shinso asked, walking to the now empty seat. He was fine a second ago. Ochako said. Deku's been acting weird since he got back from who know where. Katsumi said. DMNBSTRD started that DMN muttering again. I think if Midoriya isn't telling us, it is his choice. Ida said, in a similar state of mind to Midoriya. So, Shinso having felt weird about what was going on. Nizu's office. Izuku walked in to see 4 people sitting in the room. Man of Iron. They're said, dead or alive? Izuku asked. Victor Stone aka? BoomTube exhaled through his nose. Having trouble deciding how to word it. Well, he's still breathing. BoomTube said. A picture was pulled from a file. The old man took one look at it and said, look familiar. To All Might. The trickster's Loki Odinson face was covered in bandages and numerous tubes were shoved into him. All Might could only nod at seeing the similarities. He's stable. Victor said, but we don't know how long it will take to heal. My hammer me power never actually. Thor struggled to finish the sentence. His own power turned on his own family. Whosoever holds this hammer, if he be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor. Was this really worthy? Was his brother so bad that the hammer hadn't stopped the beating? Was this Midgardian right to do this to Loki? Look, Izuku started, but his tears started spilling. I couldn't let him. He was just too much of a risk to stay alive. Well, due to recent events, we need to figure out the next course of action. Nizu said, Midoriya, you will be visiting Hound Dog 2 times a week for therapy. Mr. Odinson, I will need to speak with you privately. Your friends in higher places have cleared the illegal crossing and no Onino civilians were harmed in the fight. Victor said, man, you really smashed a god's face in. Izuku breathed. I have something to discuss with you, young Midoriya. All Might said, I'm sure you know who this is. Gran Torino. Izuku said, yes, but he was also the one that trained me. All Might said, look Thor, Izuku started before shaking, I can't find one reason to justify letting him live. Thor had stood up and put a hand on Izuku. Honestly, I can't either. From what Victor of Stone has said, heroes' jobs are to keep the people safe. The fact your instinct had drove you to this was not without reason. Loki has done many things that have people calling for his head on a pike. You were the first to actually get far with the attempt. Teacher's lounge, and that's how I got injured. All Might finished. So, a guy with a quirk that takes quirks had a supposedly quirkless brother and gave him an energy stockpiler quirk. Izuku said, seems about right. Yes, and I had defeated him. All Might said. Mind giving an old man an explanation of what happened. Izuku turned to the screen on the wall, and the HUD recording of the fight had set the two off. The hammer had been slammed onto the frost giant's entire body. Limbs torn off, bones shattered, the blood of a god pooling at the bottom of the crater. You'll rot in hell, 𝐒𝐻𝐈𝐵. A lightning bolt had struck the hammer again as it was preparing to slam onto Loki's head, but the hammer never made contact. The shout of, another one, from Thor and a shout from All Might to stop had been the only indication of what was going on, but the power of Thor was still within Izuku. The shout of, another one, from Thor and a shout from All Might to stop had been the only indication of what was going on, but the power of Thor was still within Izuku. For the next 60 seconds, Loki had finally felt the power of Thor firsthand. The image of Midoriya and All Might overlapped as the face of Loki was changing between All for One. The blurred fists turning their foe into paste. The limp bodies sticking to the fists. All Might and Midoriya could feel everything. The recording ended with a fade to black and a beeping indicator of loss of power. I couldn't, Izuku said, covering his face. We all do things we don't always enjoy in this field, kid. Gran Torino said, putting a hand on him. The fact you are feeling guilty is a positive, but I want to know how the hell you knew that horned icicle. Izuku had taken a deep breath. Okay, let me tell you a story about a man named Tony Stark and a madman named Thanos. Izuku said. Support Department Katsumi had walked into the department to get her new 𝗬𝗏. Round Face said. What are you doing here, Round Face? Bakugo asked. She's here cause Zuzu gave her my card. May said with a hologram of what looked like some kind of 𝐻𝐸𝐽𝐸𝐴. I'm here for my gauntlets. Katsumi growled out. Zuzu. Zuzu. Who the hell is this beach to be calling him? The new gauntlets were brought out and Crosshair had attached them. Each cartridge can refill itself as it rotates, so if there is ever a leak in one it won't cause a chain reaction failure. May said, also you can fire off multiple super shots. I'm still working on a pair of boots that can do the same. 𝗧𝗏𝗏 perfect. Katsumi said, flexing her fingers. Midoriya's been acting strange these last few days, so I wanted to show his advice has gone far. Ochako said, it's so much fun flying without puking. Is he okay? May said, he hasn't been around the lab much. Something happened and now his demon muttering is back. Katsumi said, what was up with Deku? He was getting better for a year, but now he's back to being weird. What's his armor's state? May said. The two looked at her. Usually his armor is a good tell of what to think. May said, hey, where did you get an armor like Deku? Ochako asked. Oh, I repaired the one All Might destroyed. May said. Who? Both girls said. Yeah, I had picked the scraps out of the blood-covered beach after both had to be carted off to Nurse Lady. May said, paying attention to the blueprints. All Might hurt Deku. Katsumi shouted. They hurt each other really. May said, what do you think of micro-rockets? Crosshair. So propellers. May said, putting a hand to her chin. May. Ochako shouted. May snapped her fingers, air compressor. The power would be perfect for a zero weight. Deku fought All Might. And lived. Katsumi shouted. He did record it. Shoko said. When did you get here? Katsumi and Ochako shouted in unison. Just now. Todoroki said, tapping her fingers together. I wanted to update my costume and maybe get some support gear. You've come to the right woman. May said, hitting save on Ochako's support gear. What's causing you problems? You being so close. Shoko said, looking left and right. I need something to get my body to reach a balanced temperature on each side. Shoko said demonstrated her quirks. Half and half, what do you know about this? Katsumi shouted, why would All Might fight Deku? 'Cause he's more than just a PP in a suit. Shoko said, he showed me the video. It's recorded. Both hero girls shouted. Testing ground Gran Torino had discussed everything with Midoriya before he had attempted to use the quirk. The first time uses it all out. All Might said. Izuku had the dummy set up and Torino had ordered him to strike it. Izuku had stepped back and rushed forward. Jumping into a chained kick. Jumping into a chained kick, you only had to use it once. Torino said. Sorry, the flow. Izuku said as his shoes were destroyed. Having had his red ones on, not his boots. Now remember what I said about power. Torino said. The load is more tolerable when it's distributed evenly. Izuku said, like cooking in a microwave. You need to make sure everything is used or you'll just mess up the food. I'm impressed you're still standing. Torino said. Metal skeleton. Izuku said, taking a deep breath. Every muscle in Izuku's body tensed and a green spark of power ran through his whole body. Every muscle in Izuku's body tensed and a green spark of power ran through his whole body. He's getting it. All Might said. It's not even close to them. Izuku muttered. Close to who? Torino asked. I can. Izuku fed more into his body. Midoriya, wait. All Might shouted. You'll break yourself, kid. Torino shouted. Believe me, this is nothing, this is nothing. I can take it. No, you can't. Both shouted. Yes, I can. That's too much power, Midoriya. Izuku had stopped climbing. The output was at peak. The student was pinned in place from the amount of power coursing through him. Plus Ultra. Rushed forward to the targets that they had set up. The shockwave had leveled the fake buildings. Gran Torino had been grabbed by Toshinori to keep him from being sent flying. Izuku's body had kept moving. He couldn't stop. All Might had raised his hand and instead of his armor something else appeared in his hand. The red, white and blue shield they saw Midoriya had in the fight against Loki. All Might rushed in front of the green blur and his glasses telling him how to activate it. A blue wall of light appeared from the shield and stopped Midoriya cold. All Might grabbed the boy and was trying to calm him, but the smell of smoke had him jump back in time for an explosion to send both flying. All Might grabbed the boy and was trying to calm him, but the smell of smoke had him jump back in time for an explosion to send both flying. Izuku was flat on his back at Gran Torino's feet. The boy's shirt had been incinerated, revealing his burned-out arc reactor and the surrounding tissue. That doesn't look healthy, Torino said. The core couldn't handle the power of Thor and melted. Izuku had neglected to actually replace the core. The material wasn't a slow leak that his kidneys were able to actually handle. The entire F core melted into his BLD. The material wasn't a slow leak that his kidneys were able to actually handle. The entire F core melted into his BLD. But it's burst open. Dorms. Izuku had walked into his room and was tackled to his bed by 3 females. Izuku had walked into his room and was tackled to his bed by 3 females. 𝐻𝐸𝐽, Katsumi said in a calm tone. Mind enlightening us? May asked. What's been going on? Bachako ended the sentence. Well, Izuku started adjusting his shirt. Oh, F you if you think you're hiding something from us. Katsumi had ripped his shirt and the lack of glowing and the hole. Oh God, May said. Ochako had turned green, diving for a trash bin. What is this? Katsumi shouted. Are your battery leaking or something? What happened? The 3 continued to shout. Just let me sleep. It can wait till tomorrow. Izuku started, but Ochako had floated him up. No, we are not letting this. She pointed to the reactor slot. Izuku reached into his pocket and held out the melted reactor. May took it and studied it. The core melted. Where the hell was that much power? Did you get into another fight? Izuku raised his hand and a green electricity ran through it. I need to sleep. Izuku said, please. I'm not leaving this room. Katsumi said, throwing him onto the bed. Me neither. May said, climbing on. Hey, there's no room for all 4 of us. Katsumi shouted, trying to shove May off. We could use my room. Ochako said. Human balloons were brought to Ochako's room. the blanket of girls and the exhaustion had done enough to let him properly rest. Mental scape-horned angel was sighing as the console had shut down for the night. The inner Izuku had broke down crying. Things were going good. Why is there aliens? Why did I have to call the Illuminate again? Hey kid. Glad to finally meet ya, glad to finally meet ya. The raven-haired woman said, walking to Izuku. Hero name, Ultra Girl America, Maverick Japan. Civilian name, Nana Shimura. Status, deceased. Oh, that's interesting. Nana said as the console of all of Izuku's memories was showing any fact known about her. Move over. No, it's my chair. All right then, she said, plopping down on his lap. Let's see what we got here. Next morning Izuku woke up first and noticed the 3 females currently on him. Pepper. Izuku thought, feeling guilty before his higher brain function remembered he wasn't in Tony's head anymore. The sleeping forms of the 3 girls had been cute. Katsumi could deny it all she wanted, but she was adorable when she wasn't sneering. Ochako was like a kitten. A slight purr of her snoring. May had been a heavy sleeper when she actually slept. Jesus, you 3 are appealing. You aren't getting out of this without an explanation. Katsumi groaned out. You heard that? Izuku said. Your muttering is actually really informative. May said, I fell asleep after you taking notes. Now about the diamond hole in your chest. Katsumi said. Let's just say I need an upgrade. Izuku said. Are gonna die? Ochako asked. Izuku put a hand on her head. I just need time. He said, but we need to get to class. No one leaves this bed till you tell us exactly what's going on. Katsumi said. Palladium leak. Izuku said. May had looked at the port and said, what could have overtaxed the core where it melted? It's supposed to go cold when a core fails, right? I went too far and paid for it. Izuku said, I can fix it, but I need to get to my lab. But first we need to go to class. If you need help, just ask. Ochako said. May 𝗧𝗵𝗲 is at your service. May said. No way you're keeping me away, you 𝗬𝗧𝗟𝗑. Katsumi said. Izuku nodded and they finally got up. Class 1B. Shinso had walked to her seat. So the class traitor is still plotting with the quirkless one. Minoma said. He's training me. Shinso said. The faint sound under her desk had drawn attention. Are those grip strengtheners? Tokage asked. Must follow schedule to letter. Shinso said. Attention. Vlad King shouted, walking in. Minoma, take your seat. Tokage, put your head back on your shoulders and sit up. Shinso. Yes, sir. Kendo. Vlad asked. All students present, sir. Kendo said. Good, now on to today's schedule. Vlad said, listing off a few things. The support department would be sitting in to see how their quirks functioned and any equipment currently being processed could be set. Tomorrow the students would be picking their hero names. I expect you all to be giving your best, a glance to Shinso, and keep yourself civil with the other classes. Turning to Minoma. The purple trader definitely is getting friendly with the quirkless wonder. Minoma said. Shut it. Shinso said. What was that, private? Vlad asked, raising his voice slightly. Midoriya had offered to help me after I lost. Shinso sighed. Not really wanting to tell sensei. Definitely must be interesting help. Minoma said, so did he take you up on that offer you had said in front of everyone? I am not having any form of a CC with him. Shinso said. Well, remember, you are here to train to be heroes, not to fraternize. Vlad said, I'm sure most of you understand you won't last long if you don't show any improvement. Shinso had covered her face with her hair. Why did that JRK convince me to actually take the hero test? Time skip. Izuku had carried the cases May had with the gear she had finished. How much gear did you bring? Ochako shouted. Just the 20 projects Zuzu had wired me, I already finished. May said. 20. Was a response to a lot of the class. Yep, I'll finish the rest when Project Bleeding Heart is done. May said. Izuku looked at May and rolled his eyes. Alright May, you want to lead this one or you want me to do the introduction? Call then up and I'll explain my babies. May said. Class 1A is getting all the good gear. Minoma said. Kendo. Izuku said. A pair of gloves were handed to her. Stark Industries Flex Poly with titanium mesh offers the size alteration you need and the protection you want. May said, with the material and the proper reinforcements they are strong enough to stop a bullet or 12. Kendo slipped them on and activated her quirk. Awesome. Thank you. 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏. Izuku said. This is a BLD scanner housed in an armband. May said, using Stark Industries' masculine iron shot, it can inject a steady supply of new iron to counter your loss. Why would it need to be continuous? I can just store my iron. 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏 asked. It doesn't matter how much you have, your body still uses it. Izuku said in a nearly perfect Aizawa impression, you still need iron to function, your body is gonna use your reserves passively. Oh. 𝗧𝗏𝗧𝗏 said, thanks bro. Push the button near the thumb for a quirk boost. May said as she helped put on the gauntlet. Momo Shoko Katsumi. Izuku said. Their new costumes were handed out and they left to change. Ojiro. Izuku said. Behold 𝗵𝗃𝗧𝗵𝗲 incorporated multifunction tail tool. May said with what looked like a flail. Ojiro put it on and with a few experimental flicks was able to turn it from a flail to a hook to a lockpick. Sweet. Toru. Izuku said. May had held up a briefcase and dramatically opened it. Lights shining from the corners revealed. Lights shining from the corners revealed. Gym shorts. Tourist. Tap the button on the waist. May said. Toru did and the entire thing disappeared when the lights turned off. 𝗲𝗄𝗧𝗵𝗲. Toru shouted. Internal fiber optic light strands allow a transition between invisible and visible with a press of a button. May said, your original idea wasn't possible with the small amount we had to work with, but it is laminated and can handle water. GPS chips galore. Izuku said, also a chirp function if it is ever lost. All with a press of a button. May said holding up a key remote. May said holding up a key remote. Toru had tackled May in a hug. Izuku had started but was interrupted by the blasts of Katsumi flying over. I love it. Ochako said. I love it. Ochako said, try the boots. Izuku said. The extension spring is an improvement on the old one. May started. By a lot since this one won't shatter the second you fall further than 100 feet. Izuku started. You hush. May said, the new model use a mix of electrical drag, kinetic absorption and a gyroscope to orientate you to upright whenever you fall. Give him a try. Izuku said. Aizawa nodded and Ochako rocked back on her heels and started running forward. Aizawa nodded and Ochako rocked back on her heels and started running forward. At the end of the run she activated her quirk and flew into the air. Ochako moved through the fake city area with the support kids taking notes. Ochako moved through the fake city area with the support kids taking notes. Woo! Ochako screamed. Bring it in. May shouted. Ochako had swan dived towards the others and flipped over, landing on her feet as sparks formed around her. Ochako had swan dived towards the others and flipped over, landing on her feet as sparks formed around her. Sup extras. Katsumi shouted. It's so comfy. Shoko said as she also walked out. It's so comfy. Shoko said as she also walked out. It's so comfy. Shoko said as she also walked out. Stark Industries carbon nanotubes combined with Inferno's patented Inferno retardant achieves a fireproof yet breathable fabric. May said, also there's a pack of capsaicin gum in the pockets. Katsumi pulled it out and was about to try it when Izuku stopped her. That SHT has 8 times more capsaicin than a ghost pepper. I suggest you hold off until the actual combat testing. Your equilibrium pack is still in the works. May said to Shoko. What about that thing we talked about? Momo asked. Still working on it. May said, but I swear I will find a way for you to wear more clothes. Fishnet. Shinso said under her breath. Speak up, Private. Vlad shouted. Fishnet, sir. Shinso shouted. Momo had put a finger to her chin. That might work. Is Midoriya's superintelligence in STD? Mina asked. 'Cause if so, meet me in the bathroom in 5 minutes. It's not. Katsumi said flatly, but Shinso had shouted she hadn't slept with him. Please get back on topic. Aizawa said. Mei said, looking though her inventions. Izuku said. This is a wrist-mounted glucose counter. Mei said, no need to repeatedly inject for testing. Sweet. Sato said, slipping it on. Izuku held up a ball wrapped in paper. This is about 10 daily doses of sugar in a compact ball. I call it the rumble ball. It's a mix if brown, cane, granulated and a hint of syrup. This baby is gonna get some results, so only use it when it's safe to test. Now that's what I'm talking about. Sato said, accepting the candy nuke. Anything else? Aizawa asked. Mei had looked and said, nope. Anyone have any issues? Hey, leave some for the rest of us. One of the support students said. Yeah, not all of us are the only astronaut in the worlds but Cole. Another said. Well, I do eat that but a lot. Izuku said with an evil smile. I've been to space too. Mei said. All right, on to the exercise. Aizawa said, teams of 4 versus 4. Each team will require trying to capture the other team. Do we get to pick or is it random? Izuku asked. Ask to speak, maggot. Vlad shouted. Today I will allow picking. Each class will get 5 captains and Tei will require to pick 2 from the opposite class. Vlad said. I call Shinso. Izuku shouted. Who? She said. Field, it was Izuku, Shinso, Komori and Sato. Alright, we're going against Monoma, Kendo, Momo and Tsu. Alright, we're going against Monoma, Kendo, Momo and Tsu. Izuku said, flipping through his secondary notebook. Oh, you guys have a Kodai? Komori said. Yeah. Shinso said, that DMN notebook has been a pain since my torture session started. Quiet you. Izuku said. Where's your armor? Sato asked. In the shop. Izuku said. So you really are Iron Man? Komori asked. Izuku said, adjusting his gauntlet. So we're going into battle with a girl that talks to mushrooms, a at-risk diabetic, a quirkless SLV driver and me. Shinso said. Look, I have a plan, just trust me. Izuku said. They have a chick who can make anything and a dude who probably copied a bunch of quirks. Shinso shouted, you have a diamond frisbee. Gesturing to the shield, we're up Shiitake Creek. Good one. Komori said. Plus, trust me dash, Izuku said, pulling his jacket up and pulling the cords. Trust me dash, Izuku said, pulling his jacket up and pulling the cords, just follow my lead. Izuku said Monoma had managed to copy Harden, Naval Laser, Lizard Tail, and he had gotten his hands on Katsumi. When he had tried to use the kicks, he was actually surprised he couldn't. That wasn't a natural thing. Momo said, Izuku helped her unlock that. Whatever, we can beat Quirkless Wonder. Monoma said, it's Iron Man, Momo said as she was focusing on something. So anyone have a plan, Ribbit? Tsu asked. What do we know about Midoriya's fighting style? Kendo asked. Usually he's the strategic one. Tsu said, he's probably got 100 ways to take us down. The losers got nothing. Monoma said, hardening as a large fist was raised at him. They heard footsteps as Komori and Sato walked out. You looking for us? Komori asked. You looking for us? Komori asked, yep. Momo said as a repulsor was created along with a battery pack. She didn't risk making an arc reactor, but the battery was enough. Oh? Sato said, reaching for the rumble ball. As the energy blast along with the naval laser blasted, it stopped inches from the two. A wall of blue light had formed between the groups. What the dash? Tsu shouted as a shield slammed into the back of the head had knocked her unconscious. What the dash? Tsu shouted as a shield slammed into the back of the head had knocked her unconscious. Momo looked around, forming a pair of thermal goggles, looking for the other two. Where is he? Kendo shouted as she had slammed her fists into the barrier. A flat part of a shield hit her face as Izuku materialized behind her. Hey! He said, raising his shield as her fist came swinging back at him. A loud ring had been followed by a flash of light. Izuku had dropped the barrier as Sato popped the rumble ball. Kendo had blocked with her hands. Momo raised her hand and fired off a shot at Komori, which Izuku had blocked. Wow, that shield has no truffle protecting us at all. Komori said as Momo had charged a beam. Izuku had blasted the other team with the returned fire from the naval laser and repulsor. Izuku had blasted the other team with the returned fire from the naval laser and repulsor. Momo had yelped as she overloaded the repulsor and threw off the hot metal, and Minoma groaned as his stomach had collapsed. Scatter! Izuku and Komori bolted off in separate directions as Minoma had chased after Izuku and Momo went after Komori. Kendo had been left to deal with Sato. Come on, sugar boy, I can take it. Sato roared as he was pushed back but had leapt forward, bringing his hands together. Sato roared as he was pushed back but had leapt forward, bringing his hands together. Forcing Kendo back. Forcing Kendo back. Okay, that might be a challenge. Kendo said, adjusting her stance. Elsewhere, Minoma had been in a hurry before his time limit ran out. Why didn't I have a DMN watch? A shield came flying into his back and a kick to the face had him know where his target was. When he had kicked the shield away, the greenet had raised his arm and opened his fingers. Izuku smirked as he had vanished into the dark alley. Izuku smirked as he had vanished into the dark alley. Do you know Candace? Izuku's voice shouted from the distance. Is she related to Mike? Minoma counter. No, but she's Joe's brother. Izuku answered. I thought he passed away from ligma. Minoma responded. No, he's still alive, he lives in Sugandese. Izuku said. I thought that places got renamed to Sugma. Minoma asked. Yeah, I think so. Izuku said from a different location. It's in Russia where Yuri lives. Who's Yuri? Minoma asked before he froze. The purple-haired girl walked out, Yuri tarred. Now walk back out the arena. Girls' locker room. Shinso was pulling her clothes on when she was whipped by a towel. Good job. Mina said. Thanks. Shinso shouted as Kendo had swatted her on the butt. You made us proud. Kendo said. Shinso but was red by the time the entire locker room had offered her praise. Can my but go one day without getting smacked? Shinso shouted. It's a sign of respect. Momo said, turning and wiggling, getting smacked by Komori with it. Good job. Plus you definitely aren't lacking back there. Mina said. IF hate you. 𝐒𝐻𝐿 said. Come on 𝐒𝐻𝐿, yours isn't bad either, Ribbit. Tsu said. DMN right. 𝗃𝗁𝐻 said, swatting the other purple-haired girl. The girls' changing room. The shouts from the wall interrupted them. Yayorozu's honkers. Katsumi's goddess cake. Shoko's ice cream fed rack. Ashido's figure. Hagakure's floating panties. 𝗓𝗔 walked over to the wall. Meanwhile, boys' room. Ida was trying to stop Mineta. This is highly inappropriate. Midoriya as the class pre, where'd he go? Shinso succubus hips. Uraraka's gravity-defying tips and can't forget Azui's surprise dash. Shinso succubus hips. Uraraka's gravity-defying tips and can't forget Azui's surprise dash. The wall then crept through with ice as he was froze to the wall and it exploded. All you extras get out while we stomp this grape. Katsumi shouted. Didn't even mention me. 𝗓𝗔 muttered. Midoriya, I need. Momo looked around. Where's Izuku? He was the first to go. Ida said, I speak for the boys of classes 1A and B. He doesn't represent us. He isn't wrong. A voice behind the girls got the attention. Also, since he didn't get to say it. 𝗓𝗔, you're perfect. Where were you? The girls shouted. 𝗓𝗔 face light pink. I was waiting outside the door when I heard the explosion. Izuku said, I need to talk to Shinso and Tokoyami after class. We need to discuss what we are gonna do about him. Momo said, pointing to Mineta. Well, I have an idea. Ladies, you have 5 minutes. Keep him alive. Izuku said, gentlemen, let's be off. What give you the dash? Leave. Kendo barked, glaring at Minoma and the others. Minoma gulped and bolted along with the rest. Except Izuku. Keep him alive. Izuku said, not showing any outward emotions. If he dies, nothing can keep you in this school. I've things to deal with. Katsumi and Ochako got the meaning in that and looked towards his chest. The hole covered up by the jacket. Him dealing with the perv was far from priority right now. Go to your nerd SHT, Katsumi said. Izuku had kissed her on the cheek and left just as she had started blushing and her hands sparked. So he's just gonna ignore this. Deku's a CEO of a company. Katsumi said, covering the real reason. Right, he must know how to properly handle incidents like this. Ochako said, my dad had to go through training to deal with this when he tried to start his company. Oh, that's even better, 𝗬𝗂𝐁𝐻 said. Plus Midoriya probably has the UA handbook memorized. Shoko said. Stark Industries Izuku had walked over to his office and put in the orders for the particle accelerator. Estimated delivery time of all components 12 days. Jarvis said. How we doing on the new warehouse? Izuku asked. Unit 12 built to specifications, sir. Jarvis said. 3D printer. Izuku asked. Components have been printed and are ready for treating and assembly. Great. Crank the Ozzy and let's get to work. Next day Izuku had been called into Nizu's office and been informed that he'd be helping handle everyone's intern papers. You know, a phone call could have done the job, right? Izuku asked. I have other things to discuss with you. Nizu said, the Hero Association is on my tail about the quirkless student. And? Izuku asked. They are questioning the school ever since the break-in. Nizu said. Look, just, Izuku started, do what you have to. It's your school and honestly I have a lot on my plate. Yes, you have a doctor's appointment scheduled. Nizu said, if you don't attend you're expelled. Fine. Izuku said, but I'm bringing friends so I don't end up missing organs. Of course. Nizu said. Also I'd like to file a misconduct report on one of my classmates. Izuku said, be clear, this is misconduct, not an assault. I'm sure you understand the difference. Of course. Nizu nodded, chess. Maybe later. Izuku said, putting a hand to his chest. I understand. Nizu said. Class, Alien Queen. Mina said. No. Midnight said. Come on. Mina said. Pick a different one or you're getting pinky. Midnight said. You want my input? Izuku asked, walking in with a tablet. How about Xeno? Izuku suggested. That could work. Midnight said. I like it. Mina said. Izuku was going through the tablet to check the choices of the students. The Mind Hero, Hypno. Shinso said. Sorry, already taken. Izuku said. Brainwave. Shinso asked. Taken. Izuku said. The back and forth went on until Shinso sighed and face planted on the desk. You can come back to it, sweetie. Midnight said. The Rainy Day Hero, Froppy. Tsu said. Perfect. Invisible Girl. True said. Taken. Izuku said, pulling up a picture of a blonde-haired woman. Uff, Toru shouted. It's a pain. Midnight said, but we gotta do it now before any more good ones are claimed. Toru tried. Misappear. Izuku suggested. It's that already taken. Midnight asked. Izuku pulled up a news article about a dead hero. Her name's not archived, so it is up for grabs. Archived names were people like All Might, Endeavor. Family names like Ingenium. You get good enough, your name will be unable to use for the next generation without it being passed down. Alright, I'm the vanishing hero, Misappear. Toru said. Out of sight. Midnight said, Katsumi. Queen Explosion Murder. No. Midnight said. Cat, you wanna borrow the notebook? Izuku asked, holding up notebook number 2. Katsumi looked at the page and a half of suggestions for her name that had been added over the years. Ida. Midnight asked. Ida was trembling as he had walked up. This is passed to me from my brother to carry. My family legacy, the 5th holder of the name the Turbo Hero, Ingenium. If your brother has cleared it. Midnight said. So, are you sure? Midnight asked. Snowflame, Icy Hot and Firefrost are all taken. Shoko said down that her mother's nickname for her was taken. How about Mercury? Momo said. The planet, the stuff inside a thermometer. Midnight said, that could work. It's available. Izuku said. The temperature hero, Mercury. Shoko said. The classes went through the names and it ended with Shinso, Bakugo and Izuku at the end. Outburst or bombshell? Midnight said after the page of names was dropped to 3 options. Ground Zero, Outburst and Bombshell. I like Ground Zero. Izuku said. Well, I'm not taking it. Katsumi said. It was something Izuku called her during their heroes versus villain games. Jiminy Cricket. Taken. Izuku said. What are you picking then, smartbutt? Shinso snapped. The obvious one. Izuku said, walking up. He tapped the card and grinned. The Platinum Avenger, Iron Man, just F pick mine. Shinso sighed in defeat. Oh, she's just like you, Eraser. Midnight said. Who? Shinso asked. Present Mike picked his name. Midnight said he originally had suggest null. Welp, if we're continuing tradition, then here's my suggestion. Izuku wrote it and showed Midnight. Oh my goodness, it's perfect. Midnight hugged herself. What? Shinso looked scared as the two were grinning at her. Izuku smirked as he handed her the page while the students were looking to get a peek. The Serene hero, Cicada. Shinso asked, what am I, Midnight's daughter? You aren't. Shoko asked, tilting her head. Shinso shouted, a fish that drives men insane and a bug that does nothing but sleep and F. I like it. Tokage said. Cicada. Cicada. The two classes started chanting. Shinso said in defeat. Great, now Midoriya will go over the internships. Midnight said. Okay, anyone planning on going with the following heroes, please choose a different one. Izuku said, 𝗬𝗵𝗲 𝗵𝗲 Izuku had run through 20 heroes with screenshots of posts and comments about their previous internships. I recommend learning something useful, so the following students have picked well. Momo, Tokoyami, Shinso, Ochako-. He went through both classes' students. Any questions? A hand went up. Yeah, what the F? Juzo said, you were able to guess everyone's internships. Those aren't supposed to be public knowledge. They made sense. Izuku said, Lady and Woods are new, of course they'd send a wide net and Mineta would be picked. Momo and Kendo along with a majority of the women in this class would work for 𝗬𝗵𝗲 usual choice to use you two as advertisement for her charities. Hawks is of course gonna pick Tokoyami, and it was a given Shinso would get Aizawa. The class had been dumbstruck as the explanation of how everything was laid out. Even Aizawa had sat up and stared. What? Izuku asked. Are you 𝗎's apprentice? Momo asked, 'Cause I've spent over 2 weeks with you and even I'm surprised at that. Ukinda. Izuku said, I did spend half a year playing chess and talking with him. We bounce notes off one another. You've played chess with 𝗎. Midnight and Aizawa asked. Yeah. Izuku said, looking around, you know you guys are allowed to play a game with him. How many times have you played? Aizawa asked. Izuku was thinking, about 190 games so far. We often play about 5 to 10 games at a time. What's the ratio? Aizawa asked. Oh, it's --. Izuku started but the alarm went off. I gotta go. Catmind coming with. Sure. Katsumi said. What is it? Aizawa asked. Izuku tapped his phone and Aizawa checked his and his eyes widened as he had read 𝗎's message. Midoriya, are you --? I'm fine, okay. I just need to go through the hoops. Izuku said. Izuku -- Momo started. It's fine, okay. Izuku said firmly. When the two left, the class was trying to get answers. Midoriya has the right to decide to tell you. Ask me again and you're getting expelled. Is that his usual response to get you quiet? Kendo whispered to Momo. He threatened to expel last place day 1 and according to Midoriya booted his whole class last year. Momo said. It's true. Midnight said. Shinso had gone paler at this piece of information. No wonder 1A was so friendly. While Vlad used shame tactics, Aizawa just straight up booted you. So wait, who got last? One kid asked. Me. Toru said, but Aizawa was focused on Midori, so I got lucky. Shinso had slowly turned her head to the yellow caterpillar. OSHT, I'm screwed. Hospital Izuku was brought in and hooked to the dialysis machine. So what exactly are we here for? Katsumi asked. Dialysis. Izuku said, my kidneys can handle a little palladium on their own, but if we don't scrub it they will start to fail. Katsumi had seen the machine drain blood from her definitely best friend and replace it. The look from yellowish pale to normal was night and day as the machine had done its job. She kinda lost track of time just staying with Izuku. You're showing signs of recovery much faster than expected. The doctor said. Izuku's other hand had reached over and grabbed for hers, but Katsumi had pulled away. My quirk, idiot. Izuku pulled her closer and wrapped her arm around his. If I can't hold your hand, this is a close second. I think I should go back to my seat. Katsumi started but was told as long as she didn't interfere with the other arm, Izuku's right side was available. The thing keeping you alive is slowly killing you. Tony, please get help. Pepper said. Pepper, I don't like hospitals. Tony said. Tony had gone. He could have gotten the palladium removed before he needed lithium dioxide. Now, Mr. Midoriya, I have a few questions about your file. No, I don't have a quirk. Yes, I've had my shots. Izuku said. You've also never had a physical. The doctor said. 'Cause I don't trust hospitals. Izuku said. My kind don't usually leave them. Well, I believe we should schedule one soon. The doctor said. Can you come back in 3 days? Fine. Izuku sighed. Why did you want me to come here? Katsumi asked. 'Cause you're the only one who'd fight back if they tried anything. Izuku said. If I wasn't scared for my life, I'd have brought Mei or Yaoyorozu, but both respect authority too much to fight back until it's too late. Why are you so scared? Katsumi asked. Quirkless people don't often leave places like this. Izuku said. Hospitals have refused treatment before, and a lot of the protections patients get is ignored for my kind. Izuku glasses rang. Young Midoriya, are you okay? Jarvis warned me about the doctor. All Might's voice came from the Bluetooth. I'm safe. Cat's within arm's reach and Nizu's connection is legit. Izuku said. Call as soon as you finish. All Might said. If you feel like you're being drugged, just say the word and I'll be there before they can start cutting. Thank you. Izuku said. A feeling he hadn't really felt often. In this life and as Tony. People caring about you. Is Deku telling the truth? Katsumi asked the physician. Unfortunately, not everyone follows the Hippocratic Oath due to certain standings. He said. So wait, are you telling me Deku's never been to a doctor? Not since I was first told I was quirkless. Izuku said. How are you alive? I know I've broken at least one bone before. Katsumi said. Hair dye and college students. Izuku said, chuckling. Katsumi grabbed him. Look at me. You are getting actual medical attention. I swear I stand guard whenever you do. F anything I got going on. Izuku had chuckled. I mean it, you BSTRD. I just got you back. Katsumi said. Don't laugh at me. Plus, I'm not laughing at you, Izuku said. I'm just thinking of something I remember from a different time. Park Tokoyami and Shinso had finished yesterday and was asked to meet Izuku there. The park looked as new as the day it was built. Even the memorial benches were fixed. What do you think he's planning for us now? Shinso asked. It had been a pain, but she had started feeling better and hadn't had to be carried home after their exercise in the last 3 days. The sight of children happily playing on swings, being sad about wanting to leave a place she helped, had put a feeling in her chest. Was this accomplishment? Hopefully something. A shadow was cast over them. A winged figure had glided overhead before landing. All right, goth chicks, you've officially passed the training. All right, goth chicks, you've officially passed the training. Izuku said. What is that? Dark Shadow shouted. This is the Falcon Repulsor Pack. Izuku said. You have a jetpack. Shinso shouted. Well, technically no, this is a repulsor, not a jet. Repulsors are completely environmentally friendly with 0 emissions. Izuku said. Why are you showing us this? Izuku took it off and handed it to Tokoyami. Izuku took it off and handed it to Tokoyami. Wait, Tokoyami was speechless. I can't legally make you support gear, but I am allowed to let you borrow this, so Izuku smiled and said, with Hitosha Shinso as a witness to this agreement, I, Izuku Midoriya, allow 𝗵𝗃𝗄𝐻 Tokoyami to borrow my repulsor pack until the end of the internships. Tokoyami was frozen in place. Why? 'Cause I had this and didn't want it to collect dust in my storage. Izuku said. Tokoyami reached out and took it. Wait, is this why you were so focused on training us? Shinso asked. Yep. But I also knew you two were the weakest in both classes. Izuku said, so I decided to help the goth chicks. Why are you calling me that? 𝗏𝗏𝗄𝐵 asked. 'Cause you are a chick. A tiny, weak chick that needs to be taught to fly. Izuku said. I ain't not baby. Dark Shadow glared. Oh really, little crow? I'm a raven. 𝗏𝗏𝗄𝐵 said. Really? Then hit me. Izuku said, arms behind his back and leaning forward. Dark Shadow did and hissed in pain as it came in contact with the metal in Izuku's bones. I'm not a raven. I am a small pathetic crow. Dark Shadow says, clutching his hand and laying on the ground. Take it from a cassowary. You need to work smarter and harder. Izuku said. So you got anything for me? Shinso asked. Yes, but not here. Izuku said as his suit had flown over. Time for your first flight, baby bird. 𝗏𝗏𝗄𝐵 gulped and Izuku wrapped an arm around Shinso. Hang on. She did and Izuku grabbed 𝗏𝗏𝗄𝐵 by the pack. When they got outside the city, Izuku had pulled up the remote piloting and threw 𝗏𝗏𝗄𝐵 like a paper airplane towards Stark Industries. The 𝐴𝐴. 𝗏𝗏𝗄𝐵 screamed before he was adjusted to glide. Stark Industries Izuku had called Ojiro, Jiru, Denki and All Might over. You own this place? Denki asked. Yep. Izuku said. Young Midoriya, what did you call us here for? Well, I have a few things I wanted to offer you all. Izuku said as they entered a lab. Floating in a tube of fluid was what looked like a spine. Floating in a tube of fluid was what looked like a spine. This is an artificial spinal cord. Izuku said, it uses platinum wires to ground a human body when exposed to electrical discharge. Denki blinked, but the rest of the group had realized what he was saying. This could solve your issue. Ojiro said to Denki. Ooh. It could counter your quirk's weakness. All Might said. Oh sweet. Denki said. Well, unfortunately it has one flaw. Izuku said, pulling up a picture on a projector. I can graft a titanium plate in your head with gold conductor lines. I can graft a titanium plate in your head with gold conductor lines. Izuku said. This but on the outside of the skull, this but on the outside of the skull. So you are saying I could use my quirk without hurting myself? Denki asked. Yes, but unfortunately there is a risk to the spinal implant. Izuku said, this is a first in history, so there's a multitude of risk factors to this. Denki looked to everyone. But when he got to All Might, the retired number one put a hand to his own chest. Midoriya was the one to put me back together. I trust him, but you should make this choice on your own. Denki seemed to be hesitant. I don't know, Mani, trust you, but I'm not sure about letting you put a knife in my back. Literally. Does he need the spine implant? Ojiro asked, what if you just put the skull plate? Well, that would achieve the brain protection, however all the other perks of the spine wouldn't be available. Izuku said, the faster reaction time and electrical grounding. Plus I couldn't have May add support gear for you to connect to it directly. So if I get just this Pharah thingy in my head, it would protect my brain. Denki asked. Izuku said. What would it take to do just that? All I need to do is peel the skin off your skull and anchor the plates. Izuku said, I could get the entire thing done today and you could be up and walking around tomorrow. Are there any risks? Denki asked. Dude, I've done the bone graft on myself. Izuku said, tapping his head. Well, in that case, give me the Pharah thing. Denki said, excited. Is this legal? Jiru asked. Well, technically no, but you can get it now or wait 6 months till it's officially legal and risk something happening to you. This would, when cleared, save 1,000s of people with a similar quirk as yours from suffering. I'm game. Denki said, excited. Why did you call us here? Ojiro asked. Well, I wanted to offer something to you for. Izuku said, Stark Industries is working on an improved method of the same bone augmentation I have, but a much safer variant. Wait, are you gonna give us metal bones? Shinso asked. Izuku nodded. That is F metal as hell. Jiru said. Why us though? Ojiro asked. Well, you guys are the perfect candidates for the titanium. Izuku said, Tsu would be a good pick, but weight to density is kinda important. And Kirishima's quirk gets in the way since he can affect his bones with it, so he'd be at a very high risk to give this to. So what do we need to do? Jiru asked. Just need to do a few scans, and if you guys are cleared it, we can get you up and walking around by the start of your internships. Izuku said. Can you do a few more upgrades? 𝗓𝗏 asked, bouncing slightly and looking down at herself. Please. Denki said, folding his hands, getting poked in the ear by 𝗓𝗏. 𝗓𝗏, you look fine, okay? Izuku said. I'm F-flat. 𝗓𝗏 shouted. The word is petite. Izuku said, plus you got a good waist. You won't gain anything from a melon's job. Say the guy hanging around 𝗵𝗲 𝗵𝗲 and that. 𝗔𝗂 gestured to Shinso. I call bullshit if I'm just as good. Well, you've got our appealing face, those earlobes are definitely a plus, and since I've heard you sing, Izuku leaned in, I could have a lot of fun with that throat. 𝗓𝗏's entire face went red. Can we move on please? Dark Shadow asked. Anyway, who wants an upgrade? Izuku asked. The group said. They were led to a different room and Izuku whispered to All Might. The tungsten plates for you are ready. Thank you. All Might said. Later, after everyone had gone through a brain scan and checked, Izuku had cleared everyone except 𝗓𝗏. Hold on. Hey. 𝗓𝗏 started, but then a black fluid started leaking out her nose and eyes. Hey. 𝗓𝗏 started, but then a black fluid started leaking out her nose and eyes. She slumped over and Izuku caught her. After her head heated up and cooled, she had regained consciousness. What the dash? 𝗓𝗏 felt something in her throat and was handed a trash can. What the F was that? 𝗓𝗏 shouted. You had a benign tumor on your pituitary gland. Izuku said, luckily it hadn't grown enough to completely prevent you from maturing. Wait, are you telling me I'm short cause I have brain cancer? You had brain cancer. Izuku specified, you just puked up the tumor and the injection I gave you prevents you from getting it again. 𝗓𝗏 just sat there, jaw dropped. You've cured cancer. Why isn't it in every hospital? 'Cause if I release it before mass production, I can't undercut the existing treatments. Medical quirks have pushed progress, but they haven't adjusted prices. If a doctor can literally just touch you and repair a bone, it will still cost the same if a quirkless surgeon did it the old-fashioned way. So Big Pharma doesn't want a cheaper option. 𝗓𝗏 said, figures. But don't worry, I'll be releasing it commercially soon. Izuku said, but to answer your earlier question, not exactly. Your mother's 5 feet 8 inches and your dad's 4 feet 11 inches. So short isn't exactly unexpected. But could you perhaps dash? No, 𝗓𝗏, I can't make any drastic alterations. Not without multiple surgeries. Izuku said, the first part of the process could add maybe a few inches at most. 𝗓𝗏 huffed as they exited the room where everyone, minus All Might, were at. Okay, everyone will lay on the tables and be given anesthetic gas and the gene therapy can begin. Okay, everyone will lay on the tables and be given anesthetic gas and the gene therapy can begin. Izuku said. Instead of the 3 days in a cocoon like 𝗓𝗏𝗄, the new procedure had targeted injections. Instead of the 3 days in a cocoon like 𝗓𝗏𝗄, the new procedure had targeted injections. The areas would be given a temporary variant of 𝗓𝗏𝗄 and injected with the nutrients instead of the body making its own. It wasn't as much raw power as 𝗓𝗏𝗄, but it would be much quicker and ensured the body wouldn't accidentally grow under the metal and, well, let's just say it wouldn't be pretty. You guys ready? Plus ultra. Later 𝗓𝗏 had woken up after the injection and stood. She had felt different. 𝗓𝗏 looked around at the others. Wait, holy sh, I'm taller. Ojiro was the one that had changed the least. Only gaining an inch, making him 6 feet 1 inch. His body didn't seem so different. He was the most athletic out of all of us. I know he's 5 feet 6 inches in the show, but he's an adult here. Denki had gained 3 inches to 5 feet 11 inches. His body had definitely improved. Still a perv. 𝗓𝗏, though, looking around. Tokoyami looked like a wound-up spring. Definitely gaining mass, but he wasn't as buff as Ojiro. The other purple-haired girl had bumped up 2 inches, making her 5 feet 4 inches. And 𝗓𝗏 had gone from 4 feet 10 inches to a glorious 5 feet 3 inches. Yes, her canon height is 5 feet 1 inch, but I don't want to make them all 6 feet. The augmentations aren't full-blown Spartans, and Shinso height and weight are designed to be a ninja. 𝗓𝗏 is 'cause I like the flat punk rock girls just as much as big 𝗕𝗓𝗓𝗓 goth. She had enthusiastically looked down and slouched. Her tips hadn't changed. Proportionally, she was exactly the same as before. Holy SHT, I'm secretary, Denki shouted. After everyone was checked again, Izuku confirmed the therapy worked so they could begin the titanium ossification catalyst. Originally, my augmentation required basically wilding the plates to the bones and healing them into them, Izuku explained as they were sat down in a room and given a slideshow. The risks to the first method was high and only mitigated by the extremis in my body. This improved method is safer and will hold a much faster recovery time. Instead of the brute force method to active my skeleton, this uses a catalyst to basically trick your bones into using a colloidal titanium similar to how strontium can take the place of calcium. Instead of the brute force method to active my skeleton, this uses a catalyst to basically trick your bones into using a colloidal titanium similar to how strontium can take the place of calcium, rapidly strengthening your skeletons. So it won't choke our skeleton. Ojiro said, getting looks. I passed biology, I know BLD is made in the bones. Yes, your skeleton will have the complete functionality as before. Izuku said, I've also got a cochlear implant to prevent hearing damage. The implant automatically adjusts sounds to distinguish sources. Izuku said, a gunshot would sound the same as bubble wrap to you. I'll take two, Jiraiya exclaimed. Few days later, Ojiro was walking through the halls. His body was just getting over the titanium injections. He felt like 𝐒𝐵 even with the painkillers, but judging by the rate of healing, Izuku's claim about being ready for internships was true. The first round of injections from the growth hormones actually had him waking up feeling like $1,000,000. The titanium bone injections were like his bones were being scattered like glass. Ojiro had experienced the world through a new lens. Not that he got the eye implant yet, but Jesus Christ was his hearing weird. He had expected being overloaded by the sounds when he got the implant, like when you forget to turn your headphones down, but no, it was calm. Like scary calm. No ringing when quiet, which he learned when he had meditated earlier. He felt the extra weight for sure. Jesus, he hadn't felt this bad since he was a white belt. How could Midoriya deal with an even heavier metal in him? Ojiro was walking down for a snack when he had turned. Ojiro, you heard me? Toru asked. Yet too learned a few new mental tricks. Ojiro had been forbidden from revealing the surgery until Izuku could confirm there were no side effects. Wait, is it like that thing in anime where they get like hyper-focused on an enemy? Toru asked. No, it's more like I'm hearing things a lot more. Ojiro said, it doesn't hurt my ears, but loud noise don't cause me to flinch anymore. Cool. Toru said, well, I came down here for a snack. Wanna sit and talk? Sure. Ojiro said, smiling as he grabbed 2 cups. 2 plastic cups. Are you okay? Toru asked. I kinda went a little too hard with my workout today. Ojiro lied, and my body is paying for it. Oh, let me get the milk. Toru said, rushing over, go sit on the couch. After talking about random topics, laughing and just enjoying Koda cooking skills, they had slowly moved on to other topics. What's it like being invisible? Ojiro said. I used to hate it more than anything. Toru said. Ojiro turned and looked at her wide-eyed. I hated having to be naked to use it. I was always so scared if I got knocked unconscious I'd just end up dead. Toru said, curling up, my body could just be laying somewhere during an emergency and no one would know. I despised the people who even suggested I had nothing to be embarrassed about. Oh. Not really knowing what to say. Do you want to get it off your chest? Well, I almost punched Momo the first day of training. Toru said, you know, usually when a guy is staring at someone's chest and someone covers up. Well, I can't do that, and whenever I mention it, people's respond the same, we can't see it. You ever see a painting that seems like it's staring into your soul? Picture that, but multiple it by the entire world. And my DMN clothes require people to stare at my chest. I don't want random dudes staring at them. You were definitely flirty during our first trial. Ojiro coughed. Did it not cross your mind I was trying to flirt with a stud like you? Toru exclaimed before slamming her hands to her mouth. Ojiro's face went red and he could feel the heat coming from Toru. I don't know what to do with this information. Responded Mr. Masahiro. Jarvis' voice came from his implants. You're cute. Ojiro said awkwardly, do we do anything with this? Are you asking me out? Wadash, The answer is yes. She cut him off and squeezed him. So, Ojiro started, I guess we're busy with the internships, so, get over here. Toru grabbed his shirt and pulled him off. Hey, why are we going to Yaoyoro's room? Toru banged on the door, revealing a sleepy-looking Momo. It's the middle of the night. I need a pack of condoms and a stick of glow-in-the-dark lipstick. Toru exclaimed. Momo just blinked and sighed, let me get my phone. With the requested items in hand, they made it to Toru's room. Ojiro was thrown face first into the mattress and Toru climbed on him. I got something for that pain. Ojiro felt hands on his back applying pressure. This was going to be a fun night. Dorm's Shinso had sat in her room looking down at the thing she was given by Midoriya. Legally it was stolen with permission. Shinso pulled out the remote and tapped the button expanding the cylinder. The suit was contained into the side of a phone booth she could enter and change in. Shinso pulled out the remote and tapped the button expanding the cylinder. The suit was contained into the side of a phone booth she could enter and change in. It also had a keychain attachment. She had been told not to use the suit until she was recovered, and she definitely was, but she had still felt scared to put on the suit again. She had worn it once right before her skeleton's chrome job, but she hadn't even recognized herself. The woman looking in the mirror was not the one that entered UA planning to just take the easy route in general studies. The woman looking in the mirror was not the one that entered UA planning to just take the easy route in general studies. Checking her phone, she had to be in Aizawa's classroom in 10 minutes. She looked at the briefcase before shaking her head. Something was stopping her from bringing it to her first day training under a real hero. Setting it on her desk, she dressed in her gym clothes, as instructed by Aizawa, and left. Shinso walked into the empty room. You're dead. Shinso let out a dog-like yelp as she turned to see Eraserhead in his sleeping bag. I've been standing for 10 seconds. Aizawa said, a slit throat takes 5 to 15. Shinso said. Aizawa sighed. He was seeing himself here and didn't like it. His training hadn't started till second year and it had cost him many injuries in his first few true outings. I can tell everything about you with a look at you. Aizawa said, scrawny, weak, over-dependent on your quirk. You've probably been told you have a villain quirk dash. My quirk could save 1000s. Shinso had shouted from a knee JRK reaction. A learned reaction from the 2 weeks with Izuku talking to them during the cleaning up. Aizawa raised an eyebrow but didn't interrupt her. Hostage situations, terrorist attacks, suicides. Shinso shouted, I could stop all of them with a single F word. My quirk is not a villain quirk, and don't dare say that again. Shinso had started breathing heavily before realizing what just happened and covering her mouth. I am so sorry. Bowing 90 degrees and folding her hands. Something wrapped around her and she was lifted by the scarves. When she was pulled up to eye level, she didn't see the neutral expression Izuku held whenever she had lashed out in their weaker moments of training or Vlad's glare when she had gotten last in a lot of the physical tests. It was a smile. One that held the same energy Midoriya whenever she finished a set. Pride for another person. Well, I see I don't have to light the fire under your butt. That saves us half the time. Aizawa chuckled. What? Shinso looked around. You aren't mad. I disrespected you. Respect is earned. You're only feeling gratitude 'cause I picked you. Anyone that needs to demand respect without proving they deserve it are tyrants. Aizawa said, now before you interrupted me I was saying that I went through the same HD beat for beat when I walked in here, and unlike you I didn't get the kick in the butt to actually push myself till nearly the beginning of second year. I can say I will actually enjoy training you. Shinso had clutched her chest. Her eyes started to sting. Aizawa pulled out a towel and handed it to her. Cry now, I don't want you doing it during the physical training. I know it's stupid to do it, but I don't understand why I'm crying right now. Because the weight of trying to do things alone hurts, and the relief when you get connections with others and trust enough to put your life in your hands and theirs is a powerful feeling. Aizawa said. I didn't come here to make friends. Shinso said, wiping her eyes. 𝗕𝗶𝗯𝗹𝗶, Aizawa said, also illogical. They may annoy me, but I take a bullet from my friends and they for me. You have friends? Who are they? Shinso asked. That's not 𝗵𝗲𝗏. The door burst open and in walked another teacher. Yo Shota, I got coffee this morning. Present Mike, dressed in casual clothes, said, 𝗕𝗶𝗯𝗶𝗀𝗀 black as sin. Yo Shota, I got coffee this morning. Present Mike, dressed in casual clothes, said, 𝗕𝗶𝗯𝗶𝗀𝗀 black as sin. Thank you. Aizawa said. Present Mike sense it. Shinso asked. Hey little listener. He said. I don't have time for small talk. Aizawa said, thank you again for this, but leave. Alright, but hey, I got a tip from little DJ telling me she could use some advice to get her sound to the next level. Hizashi said. A logical suggestion. Aizawa said, but do it on your own time. Now get out. Alright, you do your ninja tang man. Hizashi said, peace. Are you really a ninja? Midoriya tells me you are. Shinso asked. Oh really? Aizawa crossed his arms. And what other information about me has my student be spreading? Well, he talks about how your costume needs to be navy, not black. Shinso started. He says you most likely carry a firearm, your love of cats is another giveaway, and your quirk is an exact example of how ninjas actually fight. Something about sabotaging an enemy instead of actual combat. I don't know, I had been in the middle of pushing a washing machine across a field at the time. Well, and has he given anything else about me? Aizawa asked. Just saying we are really similar. I don't understand how except what you told me earlier. Shinso said, what's a cat's eyes got in common with brainwashing? Aizawa blinked. You don't know about my quirk, do you? Your quirk is cat eyes, right? Shinso said. No, these are implants. Aizawa said. So what is your quirk? Erasure. I can disable someone's Q factor as long as I can see any skin. Eraserhead demonstrated and turned it off. The cat eyes are a moisturizing laminate that prevents them from dying out. Oh? Shinso said, sorry, I didn't even know who you were until I think when Kendo talked to you before the tournament. Then I'm doing my job right. Aizawa said, sit down, let me explain underground hero work. Taking a seat at a desk, Aizawa had pulled up a prepared slideshow. The way the public treat heroes as celebrities is illogical. All Might has said it himself that villains hide behind your fans. People die because advertising agencies demand quotas for interviews or show appearances. Shinso had been absorbed into the lesson, taking notes and actually enjoying learning. The idea of being an underground hero sounded perfect to her. She had been hesitant to raise her hand. You're here to learn. Questions are expected. So what exactly is different about public and underground? Shinso asked, like I understand working in secret, but aren't there like performance SHT you need to do to keep your license? The Hero Association keeps records and your hero license is just as valid. All cops know how underground heroes work. Aizawa said, it's unlikely you're gonna be in costume during a public encounter. I've stopped hundreds of crimes just by looking and letting the cops deal with it. The shadows are where we do the majority of our job. Aizawa had moved on to their goals for the week. We'll begin with mental training to start with. The ability to control your heart rate and breathing in combat are crucial. Then we'll begin judo training. Shinso nodded. Alright, let's start with the 9 Kujikiri. Aizawa said. Midnight's classroom. Momo had walked in after a calming breath. This was the first official day she got to learn from Isus. Her time this week would be documented. She had entered and saw Midnight going through paper. Momo sat in the chair and sat quietly. She knew what this was. After 30 minutes, Midnight stopped and smirked. Well, my lessons are sticking. Momo nodded, also knowing this was a test. You may speak. Midnight said. Thank you, 𝗵𝗲𝗏. Momo said. Well, since we got you properly trained to listen, we can get to the fun parts. Midnight said, walking over and sitting on the desk inches from Momo. Let me tell you about the woman that taught me how to kick butt. Her name was Ivy Valentine. The woman was a goddess with a WHP. Midnight started explaining how she had reached a level of prowess that she could use the momentum from swinging the weight of her chest to kick bullets out of the air. Now, since your quirk requires a different type of fighting, you'll be learning from one of Madame Ivy's students. I believe you know the name the Wicked Weave Hero, Bayonetta. I believe you know the name the Wicked Weave Hero, Bayonetta. Yes, I have, 𝗵𝗲𝗏. Momo said. She was a woman with the ability to control her hair like it was another arm and used it to create weapons and fire a 4-pistol set. She went missing talking about a missing sister. Well, let's begin with a few of our training session recordings back in college, then we can begin teaching you the wicked way. Midnight said, "Katsumi, I should have picked someone else." Katsumi thought as she was being lectured about her personality. Honestly, she had picked him for the sole reason he was higher rank. This was going to be a long week. UA testing ground Izuku was told to meet Gran Torino there to try again with properly adjusting full cowling. Him and All Might flew there and landed just outside the entrance. Walking onto the field he saw him face down. Torino. All Might rushed over. "Red sauce and sausage," Jarvis said as Izuku swabbed the puddle. "Try shocking him." All Might said, "Your social security check is late." "Not like that," All Might said before Torino raised his head. "Who wears my money? Knew you were fine." Izuku said, "Yes, slipped on a rock and spilled my lunch." Gran Torino said, "You ready to try this without exploding?" "Yeah," Izuku said, reaching into his shirt and pulling out the arc reactor. "That armor looks really familiar." Torino said, "Yeah, my flight is similar to your quirk." Izuku said, "You up for a sky fight?" "Maybe later." Torino said, "Now begin." 𝗂𝗁𝗵𝗲 looking at the address and confirming the building. 𝗂𝗁𝗵𝗲 had taken the train with his wing pack under his original cloak and the accessories in his own backpack. "I'm here for my internship with 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, he said to the receptionist. "Oh, 𝗏𝗏𝗏 is waiting for you," she said, down the hall through the door and the left. "Thanks," Dark Shadow said. 𝗂𝗁𝗵𝗲 knocked on the door. "Come in." Hey, you're early, 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 said. "I packed last night," Dark Shadow said. "So, is there anything you want to know before we start?" 𝗏𝗏𝗏 says, "Yes, I wanted to clear a few things up." 𝗂𝗁𝗵𝗲 said, "Dark Shadow is a separate person. The only thing actually different is he can't leave my shadow." "Well, in that case it's good to meet both of you," 𝗏𝗏𝗏 said, shaking Dark Shadow's hand. "Also, we need you to teach us how to fight with wings on our back." Dark Shadow said, "You have wings too?" 𝗏𝗏𝗏 says, "You have wings too?" 𝗏𝗏𝗏 asked, "We kinda have them on loan." Dark Shadow said, "Where'd you get these?" 𝗏𝗏𝗏 asked, touching one of them. "A deal with something the deepest beings in the abyss tremble." 𝗂𝗁𝗵𝗲 said, "We were given these since I'm not strong enough to fly the two of us." Dark Shadow said, "Wait, you can fly." 𝗏𝗏𝗏 says, Dark Shadow scooped up 𝗂𝗁𝗵𝗲 bridal style and walked around for about a minute and collapsed. "I can only do that for at most a minute before fainting. I used to only have maybe 5 seconds before stopping to recover. The jetpack is to gain the knowledge of how to fly with wings, then when my body is strong enough I may fly." 𝗂𝗁𝗵𝗲 said, "No, I get it. I couldn't properly fly until I hit PBR2I. Only slightly glide." 𝗏𝗏𝗏 said, "This is great, I have years of experience and would love to teach someone my fighting style. Do you have anything else so I can write a schedule?" Let's see," 𝗂𝗁𝗵𝗲 said, looking around himself. The arm screen had a notification for tutorial. 𝗏𝗏𝗏 read it and said to press it. 𝗂𝗁𝗵𝗏 backed as far as he could and Dark Shadow got between both. Midoriya's invent scared him. This was entirely different from his usual style of builds. "Oh, this is interesting," 𝗏𝗏𝗏 said, watching the drone float in place. "It appears to be some kind of recon device." 𝗂𝗁𝗵𝗏 said. 𝗏𝗏𝗏 looked at the screen and his eyes were getting wider and wider along with his smile. "So let me see if I understand what I'm currently looking at here," 𝗏𝗏𝗏 said, seeming to go to a neutral look. "You have a pair of red wings that can detach apart to use for reconnaissance as well as attacking. That would summarize it, yes?" "Sons!" 𝗏𝗏𝗏 shouted, hugging both of them. 𝗂𝗁𝗵𝗏 hadn't showed any reaction, but Dark Shadow had been on a level of a younger Midoriya if All Might had said the same thing. "Papa," hugging back with purple tears flowing down his beak. This was gonna be a long week. 𝗂𝗁𝗵𝗏 though. I made back to the story Ida as he made my way to Manuel's agency. The thoughts of his brother laying on that hospital bed had made it hard to sleep. Against what Izuku had suggested, Ida had picked Manuel for one reason. The BSTRD that crippled his brother was in the area. Ida hadn't given a second thought about his intentions. His brother was injured and the animal was still out there. I will avenge you, Ida thought. Mark my words, hero killer. You will pay for what you've done. Midoriya walking into work was usually a calm experience for Inko. Compared to what she's been doing at the gym with Rumi, she was actually keeping pace with the others. Inko had heard the booming voice of the now #1 hero through the door. Shoko, you will listen me. It's Mercury to you, 𝗕𝗏𝗏. Out walked a familiar young woman. She had bumped into Inko and seemed to instinctively wrap her arms around her. Hey, wait a minute. She started. Hello. Inko said, not minding the hug. Wait, are you? She seemed to be realizing when 𝗕𝗏𝗏 walked out. Midoriya, your dash. 𝗕𝗏𝗏 stopped. Wait, you're Izuku's mother. Shoko said. Wait, you're Izuku's mother. Shoko said, sidekick 𝗓𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏. Inko said, or Inko Midoriya, mother of the boy that stabbed you. This is my daughter. 𝗕𝗏𝗏 said. No, I'm not. For the next week I'm here to get training for controlling my quirk and finally never seeing you again. Shoko shouted. You are the 4th attempt at creating my perfect successor dash, 𝗕𝗏𝗏 said. Remember that pink fire? The fact I could use both of my sides? Shoko asked. Neither of them were from your help. I'm here to scrap the remaining you can teach me from you and never see you again. When the two had started their quirks, Inko had hugged Todoroki from behind, using a little extremis heat to warm the ice, and held out a hand that seemed to stop 𝗕𝗏𝗏 in place. I apologize where my quirk is, but as a mother I'd like to add my input that could probably help here. Inko said. You have the floor. 𝗕𝗏𝗏 said, pale and sweating. What are you doing to him? Shoko asked. My quirk can pick up small things, sweetie. Nearly every human organ counts, so I'm currently holding one of his kidneys. It won't kill him unless I actually put a little force. Inko said, I don't usually do this, but unfortunately a hero has to do the right thing here. Even if you're my boss. 𝗕𝗏𝗏 nodded and Inko suggested the employee meeting room. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. Each of you have 2 minutes to make your opening statement and the other will be quiet. Inko said, you're a lot like Midoriya. He's the voice of reason in the class. Shoko said, thank you, sweetie, but compliments won't get any favor in this argument. Inko said, smiling at her. Now I will pull a coin out and flip it 3 times so no one complains about unfairness. Am I clear? Yes, ma'am. Bo said. Hawk's hero agency. Hawks had Tokoyami in a 𝗓𝗏𝗧 of some kind in a large room. This is my VR flight room. I use it to train when it's raining. Hawks said, we're gonna start with a slow climb. Watch the position of my legs and back. You don't want to pull something and put too much force in it. Hawks had showed Tokoyami, and when he attempted to copy, Hawks adjusted him. Nice job with keeping that back straight. Bend those knees just a bit. That's not a problem, Tokoyami thought. His back was default upright due to some kind of spinal reinforcement. Midoriya had stressed the importance of proper neck and back care since Tokoyami had showed early signs of back problems from his goth brooding. It took a lot of effort to bend like normal, but Midoriya told them it would adjust. Hawks had been very excited about the wings. From what he could research, Hawks had no family. Dark Shadow wasn't helping with actually acting like he was. Tokoyami had actually enjoyed his time learning, but as with his entire life, he was stuck carrying his quirk brother everywhere. Dark Shadow was trained all day to carry Tokoyami when they weren't working on flight prep. Apparently Dark Shadow's strength had increased with their day training. In darkness he had unlimited stamina, so he recovered fast but never exerted himself due to the increased strength. But during the day it was his true strength and could actually train to push himself. Light wasn't weakening him, it was just preventing him from essentially cheating his workout. So Izuku had forced him to train with a light-up shirt. Tuesday, Tokoyami walked in and was quizzed on the 4 wing shapes for flying. Displayed, facing out from the shield, the wings fully extended, the common position for an eagle, then also known as a spread eagle. Displayed, wings inverted, as displayed, but with the wingtips turned down. Close, standing on the ground with the wings folded. Perched, perched on an object like a branch. Rising, rousant, about to take wing. Apparently Izuku also programmed these things with different wing settings that suspiciously had the exact same ability as hawks to actually change wing feather type at will. Apparently Izuku also programmed these things with different wing settings that suspiciously had the exact same ability as hawks to actually change wing feather type at will. 𝗏𝗏𝗏 had yet to take off solo, but he was about to do an actual takeoff tonight. Out of safety, since Dark Shadow can use he full strength we're flying at night. Hawks said, I'm gonna do a few demo dives myself. Your drone will be perfect to give you an up-close look. Yes, sensei. 𝗏𝗏𝗏 said. There was no attempt at the excitement from Hawks. He had other with similar flight methods, but 𝗏𝗏𝗏 could see he was way too similar for it to be a coincidence. Midoriya was definitely gonna get confronted about this. Tuesday, Endeavor Agency Emerald had made more progress with my daughter in 2 hours than the 12 years since Ray snapped. In exchange for actually listening to training, he was forbidden from even saying her name. He also was forbidden from calling Shoko's quirk his. She had re-registered her quirk as Frostfire. She showed no hesitation from the training after the agreement. God damn it, I owe that woman a raise. Endeavor thought. He had talked through his lawyers, the same one that helped with his quirk marriage, and had drafted a contract offer for the green one. Much to his surprise, the boy had sent his own lawyer. One that was very well known as the Yaoyorozu family attorney. Wait, is the Yaoyorozu clan offering their daughter? Endeavor shouted. They intend to, since Mr. Midoriya has started a business partnership with Yaoyorozu Incorporated. The lawyer said, the boy's apparently the founder and CEO of Stark Industries. Also apparently your daughter's new outfit is made of something ordered from that location. What's the boy worth? Endeavor asked. A lot. Endeavor ran a hand through his hair. Any attempts to contact the boy was met with his butler telling him that he was busy with internship with Gran Torino. Endeavor hadn't remembered off the top of his head who that was, but a quick look into records had him finding out it was the teacher that had taught All Might. What's our plan here? Endeavor asked. Well, after talking to the lawyers from Aldine that got the quirkless discrimination lawsuit dismissed, they had offered a few ideas. The lawyer said. Aldenthet School was mysteriously being put out of business by an anonymous source of taking all the quirkless kids to prevent them from collecting on the quirkless preservation funds since the school year started. The school had held back students before when they knew a year was gonna lack the money bags. Those lawyers had a reputation to quirkless people for taking their cases and destroying them in court. Izuku walking through the hall. Izuku was passing the gym. Momo and Midnight were working on hand-to-hand. Momo had looked like she was getting her butt handed to her, and when she got a square hit to Midnight's face, had prevented her from copying Midnight's chain of attacks. In the second gym, Midoriya had seen Aizawa doing something similar with less intensity. Momo had gone through the mental conditioning and combat training in her childhood that Midnight's methods were more reprogramming existing reflexes instead of starting from ground zero. The purple girl had looked out, and when she had saw him, Aizawa had turned. Midoriya, what are you doing here? Aizawa asked. Gran Torino insisted on real food. I gave him a food bar. Ungrateful pages. So I'm just gonna work on some stuff with Nizu. Izuku said. He wasn't lying about Torino hating the food bar. No one liked the version one. Momo had been able to learn to tolerate them. She and Fat Gums were the majority of the ones ordering. A single bar had a week's worth of food for a grown adult in the size of a chocolate bar segmented into 21 squares. 1 square per meal. Of course they'd be bought, but reviews of them all hate the taste. Even number 5 hates the taste, and she has told people she likes the taste of drywall. He had been adjusting the formula so eventually other people wouldn't only eat them if they had to. So how's she doing? Izuku asked. I'm ahead of schedule. Aizawa only said, it would be illogical to stop a student from trying to improve, but I do find it suspicious you had been conditioning her specifically to match my training. A calculated risk. I happen to be very good at math. Izuku said. You've been hanging out with Nizu too much. Aizawa said. So how's the eyes? Izuku asked. I've noticed a difference. Aizawa said. Izuku pulled out his notebook. My quirk feels different. Aizawa said. I always felt that burn from it like a lighter was behind my pupils. That's completely gone. I'm feeling like I have an entirely new quirk. Well, it is engineered to reflect as much light as possible. Your quirk is most likely a form of alpha radiation since number 1, you don't have a visible line as an indicator, 2, your pupils are red, and 3, you can't use it through clothing. It's possible you could create stronger beams before, but the limit was your eye's heat tolerance. Izuku blinked and turned towards a wall away from anyone and closed his eyes. Izuku blinked and turned towards a wall away from anyone and closed his eyes. His hair started floating, and after nearly a minute he opened them. A flash of blue before 2 thin lines burst out. A flash of blue before 2 thin lines burst out. 𝗬𝗓𝐺 Shinso said. I think you just got flexed on with your own quirk. Shinso said. Later. Izuku said, walking out. His glasses tinting pixelated. Okay, seriously, are we sure he shouldn't be teaching? Okay, seriously, are we sure he shouldn't be teaching? This is a hero school first and foremost. Izuku said, rubbing his eyes. They weren't burning, but they were seeing a glare for a few seconds. He's here to learn to do the job. Izuku's room on his desk was the heart that started it all. The thing that turned $60 into 15 grand. The original core still powering his house. Unfazed, unburdened by recent events. Still running as it did the day it was plugged in. Izuku popped out the burned core and chucked it into a separate insulated can. Izuku popped out the burned core and chucked it into a separate insulated can. As the new core was slotted in, the reactor hummed back to life as it pulsed like a heartbeat. Izuku had set it on its stand and leaned back in his chair, running a hand over his face. Hey Sonny, what happened to your neck? What happened to your neck? That don't look road, Izuku said, lifting his shirt and slamming the reactor in rash. Kid, I know a problem when I see it. Gran Torino said, recovery girl can dash. No. She can't. Izuku said, if she uses her quirk, it's just gonna make it worse. My body can't naturally fix this with the way things are now. She could still help. She is a doctor, kid. Gran Torino said. The only thing she can do is lecture me on SHT I already know, already am working on, and can't do jack SHT about. My life is in the hands of the shipping company. Izuku shook his head. I know how to fix this. I don't want excuses. I don't want a reason for me to lose what I've fought to earn. Gran Torino put a hand on Izuku. Don't make his mistakes, kid. Let your friends help. Izuku nodded. Do you need that to use the quirk? Torino asked. Izuku removed it and held up a hand. I can't explain it, but the quirk 𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓𝗓. Izuku said, it's not letting me use it without the reactor. Like it's trying to get its energy back. Torino said. Inside Izuku's head, can you please just stop draining it? He asked. No, we have 8 mothers worth of energy lost. Nana said. Izuku's heart had been a great converter from electrical to metabolic, and the power used to fix Toshi had to be given back. So you're just gonna keep us dying then? Well, you can let us see those memories you keep locked up, or you can wait for your parts to come in. Nana said, sitting on the arm of the chair. No. Izuku said, you really don't want to get raw dogged by the living universe. Oh, believe me, sweetie, I want to. Nana said. The answer is no. Izuku said. The 20 seconds were behind a vaulted door deep in Izuku's mind. Opening it wasn't a good idea without reason. Katsumi Best Jeanist had been arguing with his latest intern when a call had interrupted them. Best Jeanist had been arguing with his latest intern when a call had interrupted them. The number 3 hero had expected a loud bark into the phone, but the eyebrows that were previously bent into a glare and mouth nearly foaming with sneer had softened. He had never heard this young she-devil sound like a lady in all the time she was here. On my way. Who was that? Jeanist asked. None your DMN business. I'm out of here, she said, marching to the locker rooms. Following, trying to use fiber MSTR on her uniform, but the entire thing was made of something he could get so much as a tug on. She slammed the door to the female's locker room, and Jeanist went to meet her on the other side near the front entrance. The sounds of his sidekicks shouting and a faint glow had him rushing as the sound of metal hitting flesh. Front entrance, standing in the lobby with something sticking out their mouth, was a green-haired young man with a slightly scruffy mustache goatee combo that Jeanist recognized as a once well-groomed many who worked in his denim factory wore. A back jacket with orange accents and baggy pants that had put his quirk on edge. Other than a red and white shield with a glowing blue light similar to one on his inner shirt, he showed no really outward reason for his youngest sidekick to be yelling and the desk secretary calling him to remove him from the premises. "Get out of here, you bum." His latest sidekick had started shouting. "I'm waiting for someone," he said. "You have no business here, you ruffian. This is a place of class, not this." The male had backhanded them and said, "Do you know who I am?" "No, I don't. My name's Class," he said, smirking. Best had actually cracked a small smile at the age-old insult. "Oh, that's it, buddy, you're dash." The green-haired boy had ducked, parried the punch and pulled the sidekick down into a knee. "That looks like Deku," his intern said, walking out without her gauntlets on. "Useless," 𝗔𝗂𝘁 thought as she had walked over to pull the sidekick away. "Useless," 𝗔𝗂𝘁 thought as she had walked over to pull the sidekick away. 6. Hey. Babe was worried for a second. He said, turning to the angry blonde. "You ready to go?" "You're not going anywhere. The cops are on their way," the sidekick said. "But best?" 𝗔𝗂𝘁 asked, looking towards them. "Trespassing, impersonating a sidekick, and assault," the newbie said. "First you hit me. Second I gave her my temp hero ID. Thirdly Deku said before ducking another swing before blocking a chain of kicks. Thirdly Deku said before ducking another swing before blocking a chain of kicks. "Oh, that's it," the newbie said before calling for backup on the radio. "Wait!" Best 𝗔𝗂𝘁 shouted. "Wait!" Best 𝗔𝗂𝘁 shouted. Sidekicks had rushed him. One had sent a projectile, but a quick block and backhand swing dropped both the frontliners, and kicking off the head of a third had spun to throw the disc at one of the ranged fighters. Sidekicks had rushed him. One had sent a projectile, but a quick block and backhand swing dropped both the frontliners, and kicking off the head of a third had spun to throw the disc at one of the ranged fighters. It took Best 𝗔𝗂𝘁 activating his quirk and pinning everyone on place and the green one's arm being wrapped around Bombshell. "Enough." The third hero raised his voice. "Please, may I see your temp ID?" Best 𝗔𝗂𝘁 asked Deku. She didn't give it back. Izuku pointed to the receptionist. "It was clearly a fake, sir." She tried to defend herself. "ID, now," 𝗔𝗂𝘁 said. "The card was cut partly. I tried cutting it and he used a weird shield quirk to stop me before I could finish." Best 𝗔𝗂𝘁 didn't take his eyes off her as he reached for the NFC scanner on the desk. With a single swipe, the computer screen showed a file. Name, Iron Man Mentor, Gran Torino. Date issued, current day -4. Badge status, active. "His badge clears it," 𝗔𝗂𝘁 said. "Well, I asked for a license and he refused to give me it." "I don't need to tell you my civilian name," Iron Man said. "He doesn't," Best 𝗔𝗂𝘁 said. "However, I will ask, where is your mentor?" "Across the street. We just stopping for food after a patrol." Iron Man pointed outside to a food stand. "I have an appointment that I can't go to without Bombshell." "Still don't trust him," the one that was currently on the ground said. "Is it urgent?" Best 𝗔𝗂𝘁 asked. "You're DMN, right? It's urgent," Bombshell shouted. "Can't just give Torino a few minutes to explain. I need to sit down," Izuku said. "Still think this Gran Torino sounds like a false name," the secretary said. "Gran Torino was my homeroom teacher back when UA was a high school," Best 𝗔𝗂𝘁 said. "For real?" The sidekick groaned out. "Yeah, 𝗧𝗏 exactly what you are and how you reacted to me being here." The boy said. "Bombshell, is this truly your classmate?" Best 𝗔𝗂𝘁 asked, pinching the brim of his nose, which was slightly difficult through his mask. Katsumi held up her phone and hit the contact. The green-haired boy pulled out his phone that was silently ringing and answered it before ending the call. "I was also at the tournament," Izuku said. The three professionals looked confused. "I was third place." Silence. "I stabbed Endeavor's daughter," Izuku asked. "Oh, you're that guy? I didn't recognize you with clothes on," Denise said from behind the counter. "Wait, is he your boyfriend?" the sidekick asked. "No, but back the F off of him," Katsumi said, getting closer. "Oh, so you're shirking off your responsibilities here to gallivant with him?" Sir, I really don't want to say why we're leaving. It's personal and all I want to say is I absolutely cannot do it without Bombshell with me. No hero would get a neck tattoo like that. The secretary said. It isn't a tattoo. Izuku said. Bombshell had sat next to him and was looking down his shirt to get a better view of the branching lines climbing from underneath. The door opened and in walked a familiar face. Sensei. Best Jeanist said, stiffening up. Looking a little stiff there, Wrangler. Torino walked in munching on his food, might want to cut back of the starch. Katsumi looked between her sweating mentor and the old man. This the guy you picked? She asked Izuku. I have my reasons. Izuku said, there was a little misunderstanding. Torino looked around, seems legit. Anyway, the little lass is needed. Torino said, pulling out a note, we'll have her back before 10. Best Jeanist read it and after a quick call had allowed them to go. Can't. Izuku said. What now? Katsumi shouted. This. Izuku said. Freeze. The cops showed up. You dropped the shield and put your hands above your head. Hey, aren't you that, but that cut my license? Izuku asked. I said hands up. Guns raised. Apologies, gentlemen, let me explain what happened. Best Jeanist said, defeated. What was that about a cut license? Katsumi asked. I too am also curious. Torino said. Minutes later, so you're telling me if cop cut your license? Katsumi asked. First day I had it. Was driving with my dad, got checked at a traffic stop on a Friday night and it was in 2 pieces and the first time I got put in holding. Izuku said as they had gotten on the bus. That's gotta be illegal. Katsumi said. It is illegal. Torino said, kid, you really should file a complaint. Why did they cut it? Katsumi asked. 'Cause they said it's mandatory for all quirkless people to be registered organ donors to have a license. Izuku said, bullshit, I've read every law in the country, nothing mandates that. Sonny, you need to file that. You have the guy's face and badge. Torino said, the fact 2 people have cut your IDs is disturbing. Katsumi said, I just decided not to get another license. Izuku said, people just want to feel bigger than they are. Has anything else like that happened? Torino asked. I called the cops when I was being mugged and they hung up 'cause I was quirkless. Izuku said, rubbing his neck. I need to make a call. Torino said, moving to the front of the bus. It's F up. Katsumi said, why didn't I know about any of this? Izuku pulled her closer. Don't talk about that now. Let's just enjoy ourselves. Katsumi grinned and wrapped her arms around his head. Just as the two were getting lost in each other, a clearing of the throat interrupted them. Hey kid, mind telling me when your license got damaged? Current year minus September 3rd 12th, Izuku said. Thanks, go back to what you were doing. All Might, really? He asked. This is definitely concerning. I'll swing by. Toshinori had been told of the license incident and called Kenji Tsuragami. Hey Kenji. Toshinori said. Toshinori, what's the emergency? I wanted to discuss something about your officers. Toshinori said, you see, I've been informed and an incident on September 12th current year minus 3. Really? The sound of a notepad being flipped through and a pen clicking. Please go on. Ida Tenya splitting off from Manuel, I had searched the streets. I know you're here, hero killer. Ida shouted. The wind his only answer. Ida's face twisted into a sneer. Do you hear me? Ida shouted, slamming his fist into a wall and kicking a trash can. Shink. Ida hadn't even gotten the chance to move as he was ambushed. Ida hadn't even gotten the chance to move as he was ambushed. Your BLD tastes familiar. Ingenium, the figure said, licking the knife, dropping Ida in a second. Same type, same narcissism, same taint. Jog my memory, I believe I had cut you in half last time we met. Ida felt a foot kick him onto his stomach. A sword poked his engines. Oh, I'm smelling orange. Last guy ran off grape juice. Let me guess, baby brother's here to try and stop me. Ida lay there bleeding, listening to the madman. Shinso, this isn't the exact one, just like this version of the picture better. This isn't the exact one, just like this version of the picture better. Shinso had finally brought the suitcase to her practice with Aizawa and explained what she knew. Apparently it lets me shrink to the size of an ant. Shinso said, he gave me 𝗵𝗃𝗏 to read which I haven't put a dent in. Aizawa watched her demonstrate the shrinking suit container and the remote. You've had this and haven't brought it to me until now. Aizawa asked. No visual indicator of any emotion. No, good. Aizawa said, this would be useless without my basic training. Ooh. If this can truly shrink you with the press of a button, that would be an extremely useful for infiltration, and if it can be done in a fight, you'd need to know how to throw a proper punch, or you could kill someone with the momentum. Aizawa said, activate it so we can see what we're working with. Shinso had started calming herself with the breathing technique before raising her right hand and pressing the button. Shinso had started calming herself with the breathing technique before raising her right hand and pressing the button. Shinso fell and looked around the classroom. The world was colossal. She had seen Aizawa's mouth moving, but nothing was heard. What? Shinso asked, and Aizawa flinched as it sounded as if Mike was in the same room. His mouth looked like he said vacuum. What? Plugging his ears, he grabbed a dry erase marker and wrote, volume. Oh. Shinso looked and saw no really indication. Demon, it where's the volume? The screen showed up, and after learning the screen tracked eye movement, she had unmuted her mic and lowered her volume. How's this? Better. Aizawa said. I heard you that time. Shinso said. This appears to have a megaphone. Aizawa said. To think this has a voice changer too. Shinso said. Really? Aizawa said. I guess. Shinso said in Aizawa's voice. After resizing, they had discussed the plan for tonight. We're going on an actual patrol. Stay close, stay in the shadows, Momo, and pay attention. Midnight had finished as they had been going on patrol. Yes, emissaries. Momo said. Good, let's get going. Midnight said. Momo had looked at herself the revised outfit Izuku and Midnight had given her. Oh, before we go, a little present from Daddy. Midnight said, handing her a box. Momo opened it to see a armband. Long press middle. Momo watched a library of blueprints available. Mainly the ones from her old book, but many from Mei and Izuku. Get your butt in gear, Creati. Yes, emissaries. Until morning, it's midnight. Midnight said, smiling at her, which Momo returned. Hawk's Tower Tokoyami was looking down at the cars moving, the wind rushing through his feathers. You got this. Hawks said, flapping just a few yards away from the edge. I won't let you hit the ground. Come on, let's do this. Dark Shadow shouted. Tokoyami backed up. That's right, get a running start, bud. Hawk said. Tokoyami had felt the same fear when facing Todoroki. The same dread as when Midoriya had officially put into context of what he had done to get where he was. Come on, man, one jump, there's a pro hero waiting right there if things go bad. Dark Shadow said. Another feeling that was fairly new. Dark Shadow and him had been on the same page since they had started working out. Dark Shadow had used his inability to sleep to actually focus on improving. The goggles were pulled over his eyes and he had started breathing. Tokoyami had heard a song in his head. He didn't really remember what the name was or who, but all he remembered was it was named after an American currency. Heaven's gates won't open up for me. With these broken wings I'm falling, and all I see is you. These city walls ain't got no love for me. I'm on the ledge of the 18th story, slowly building into a full sprint. Slowly building into a full sprint hurry. With a leap he had spread out and dropped. I'm falling. Tokoyami had been grabbed by gravity once again. He had panicked and closed his eyes. Come please. I'm Callan. A hawk swooped down and guided him. Show me what's it's like. Tokoyami had started gliding through the air. Holy SHD, holy S. Tokoyami kept repeating. Ooh. Dark Shadow shouted. You're getting it, Aya. Hawks shouted. Teach me wrong from right. Hawks had flew ahead of him and flipped over. A thumbs up from the red-winged hero had put a smile on Todoroki's face. I'll show you what I can be. Hawks had occasionally grabbed him to get him to fly straight, but he was actually doing it. And I'll leave this life behind me. Then they got near a building and a massive gust of wind slammed him into a wall. Dark Shadow had tried to act as an airbag, but unfortunately they were near a neon sign. Dark Shadow had tried to act as an airbag, but unfortunately they were near a neon sign. Gotcha. Hawks said, swooping down with the grace of and catching him. I have seen the face of darkness. 𝗕𝗁𝗄𝐵 said. As have I, Hawks muttered. 𝗕𝗁𝗄𝐵 wasn't sure he was supposed to hear that. It's different who? We are one with the wind. 𝗕𝗁𝗄𝐵 said as dark shadow was spreading out around the pack's wings. Time skipped. 𝗕𝗁𝗄𝐵 had changed for the night and had stopped to talk to Hawks. Hey sensei, I wanted to ask why exactly you picked me. Hawks had chuckled and said, well, you actually reminded me a lot of myself. Is it the bird head? 𝗕𝗁𝗄𝐵 asked. Hawks shook his head and pulled out his phone. When I was around 14, right before I started UA back when it was a high school, I had snuck out my foster home and bought a pack of black hair dye. 𝗕𝗁𝗄𝐵 and Dark Shadow looked at the image of a black feathered hawk's slack-jawed. 𝗕𝗁𝗄𝐵 and Dark Shadow looked at the image of a black feathered hawk's slack-jawed. Izuku. The walking from the station to the hospital was quiet. Izuku not really telling anything specific about his internship and Katsumi deciding to not rant about best jeanist. So I wanted to ask this, Katsumi started, are we? If you're asking what I think, let me get this clear. I am 18 years old, I am in no rush to lock something in, and please don't try to. Izuku said. I still hate not having a word for us. Katsumi said. Homie, lover and friends. Izuku stated, if you want a label I guess shoddy would work. The F does that mean? Katsumi asked. It means, Izuku looked and saw something. Katsumi shifted into a stance looking around. Time to cut another cancer out. The voice said. They ran towards the source and saw their classmate and the hero killer himself. They ran towards the source and saw their classmate and the hero killer himself. Hey. Katsumi rushed in. Izuku had pulled the strings of his jacket, causing his whole outfit to go form-fitting. His gold undersheath unfolding. He called for his armor and he rushed to get to Ida. Before Katsumi could get close enough to strike, Izuku hooked an arm around her and the hard light shield had stopped the blade from hitting Ida's throat. Well, who are you two? Stain asked, more fakes like him. Izuku had grabbed Ida and tried to drag him out the alley. Oh, you aren't gonna stop me from cutting this cancer out the world. Stain said. As the guy who officially created a cure for cancer, you don't cut it out. Izuku said. If anyone's cancer here, it's the 𝗵𝘃𝗧𝗏 attacking AF student. Katsumi said. He attacked me. Stain said. What? Both said. What? Both said, yes, this fake had come here looking to avenge that fake Ingram. Stain said.